has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Speak. Most of our senior high schools have not had full complement of food provision needed for students to start in their schools. The last time the buffer stock spoke, the buffer stock is now moving around distributing food items, though even what they are distributing is very inadequate. Monies that government is supposed to pay schools, for example, 10 cedis for students for admission fee have not been paid. Money supposed to be paid for recurrent expenditure is been in arrears for more than 2 semesters. As a result, schools are not able to buy electricity power. Schools are not able to provide repairs for furniture and other walls broken and so on and so forth. A cursory investigation we carried out, we realized that every year there is failure on the part of government to pay 2 tranches of capitation grant to the schools. And the capitation grant is 9 cedis per student. And that capitation grant is meant to repair broken windows, broken doors, furnitures, and even help in recurrent expenditure. And yet, the government is not being able to keep up with the payment of capitation grant to our basic schools. We have a situation where heads and teachers of basic schools are using their own ingenuity in soliciting financial support from the community to be able to keep these schools afloat. And this is unacceptable in the scheme of things. We cannot continue to bury our heads in the sand and pretend there are no challenges. If after 2 weeks we do not get responses for these press conferences, NAGRAT will quickly convene a National Council meeting and we will advise ourselves.
Experts have warned the restored PS kilogram cylinder. The Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association, Gabriel Kumi, has blamed the development on the city's poor performance. According to
Despite calls from social movement in the Asia-Pacific for peace and negotiations, allies of the United States and NATO in the region have jumped headfirst into militarism and warmongering driven by an anti-Russia position. According to local reports, as of Tuesday, March 1, at least 70 Japanese nationals have requested to be armed volunteers for Ukraine in the war against Russia. These requests are the latest in the series of pro-NATO warmongering actions that are sweeping countries in the region who are long-standing allies of the U.S. It also comes in response to the Ukrainian government calling for funding and mercenary support in the ongoing war, along with those with professional experience in medical care, IT, communication, and firefighting. The Ukrainian embassy in Tokyo has acknowledged these requests, but is yet to respond to them. Nevertheless, while acknowledging these requests, it added that candidates must have experience in Japan's self-defense forces or have undergone specialized training. Of the 70 Japanese who are ready to volunteer as mercenaries, 50 have formally served in the JSDF and 2 have served in the French Foreign Legions. The Japanese government has strongly warned its citizens against traveling to Ukraine, regardless of the purpose, and also reminded the Ukrainian embassy publicly that Japanese citizens in Ukraine have been given an evacuation advisory. Regardless of the public stand by the Japanese government on the participation of its citizens as mercenaries, the ruling Conservative Party seems set to take advantage of a growing anti-Russia sentiments. Japan has already placed sanctions on Russian central banks participated in the SWIFT ban against Russia and even offered Ukraine $200 million in loans and humanitarian assistance on top of close to $17 million in donations from Japanese citizens responding to the Ukrainian embassy's call for aid. Senior members of the Japanese government and the ruling Liberal Democratic Party are also calling for a debate on the country's long-running non-nuclear weapons stand. The 3 non-nuclear principles that prevent Japan from producing, possessing, or allowing nuclear weapons in the country is at the center of this debate. Former LDP Prime Minister Shizo Abe was among the first to call for a debate on a nuclear sharing agreement with the U.S., adding that discussing the supposed reality about how the world's safety is protected is not taboo. For long, public memories of Japan's militaristic and imperialist legacy in the region and that of the Second World War have kept such calls to change the non-nuclear policy at bay. But successive LDP governments since Abe's term have openly declared their intent to alter the pacifist and non-nuclear constitution. Article 9 of the Japanese constitution, a legacy of the post-World War reorganization of the country, explicitly renounces the sovereign right to declare war or use threat or force to settle international disputes. It also prevents the Japanese state from maintaining full-fledged armed forces and other war potential, along with recognizing the right of belligerence of a state. A controversial 2015 amendment under the Abe now allows the country to send material military aid to allied nations in the event of a war. This step was widely criticized and was met with massive protests, but with the growing anti-Russian sentiment and massive protests over the military action in Ukraine, nationalist and right-wing groups have found a new lease of life. Japan is the only latest in the recent slew of governments in the Asia-Pacific region which have jumped into the crisis. Australia announced on Tuesday, March 1, that it would commit 70 million AUD, $51.25 million, to fund ammunition for Ukraine, in addition to the 35 AUD, $25.6 million for humanitarian assistance. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has also declared that a majority of the weapons bought will be in the lethal category, like missiles, and partnership with NATO. This comes despite multiple calls from movements within Australia, such as the Sydney Stop the War Coalition and the Independent and Peaceful Australia Network, opposing any further warmongering and for Australia to stay out of the conflict. The Australian government has used its new military alliance, AUKUS, to echo the US and British government, who are playing a provocative role in Europe, talking up war, decrying diplomacy and appeasement, and escalating arms supplies and military deployments to Eastern Europe, said Sydney Stop the War Coalition in their statement responding to the Russian military action. Prime Minister Scott Morrison will try and use Russia's invasion to justify ramping up Australian militarism, including in the region, with China as enemy number one. NATO's warmongering has dragged along even nations like South Korea and Singapore, who, while maintaining close ties with the US NATO, have often kept themselves out of European conflict, owing largely to geopolitical considerations. South Korea announced its participation in a swift ban against Russia, along with an export ban on electronics, semiconductors, computers, information and communications, etc. It also announced humanitarian aid of $10 million. Singapore has also imposed an export ban on strategic items along with sanctions on Russian banks. In South Korea, the military action by Russia has assumed significance in domestic politics as the country is set to hold general elections on March 9. Presidential candidate Yoon Suk-yeol from the conservative and pro-US opposition People Power Party has already begun using the incident to attack President Moon Jae in response end of war agreement with North Korea. Yoon argued that a peace document pursued by Moon, which has little meaning unless it was backed by a strong military preparedness. The statement military preparedness, as per Yoon, comes with pushing the country back strongly within the US camp, increasing the frequency of joint military drills with the US, and strengthening missile systems with US help, among other things. Yoon has already called on US President Joe Biden to increase the deployment of third anti-ballistic missile system in the country. These proposed measures, along with the aggressive position against North Korea amid rising tension, has been among his key campaign promises for the upcoming elections. Yoon's contender Lee Jae-myung of the pro-peace ruling Democratic Party has criticized his position.
Road tolls in the country. In his answer, he said that in the approved budget, road tolls have been zero rated, so no money have been lost. But friends of the media, you must understand that the minister announced the cessation of the collection of tolls on the day the budget was read. The budget was not approved on the same day. So surely there was about 25 to 30 days gap between the day the announcement was made and the day the budget was actually approved. Significantly, the NPP government pretended that the road toll, the e-levy was all about helping Ghana to stop borrowing, that we should be on our own, we should generate our own revenue and use it to do the things that we needed to do. Shockingly, in the minister's answer today, he let the cat out of the bag by saying that when we pay e-levy, the government was going to securitize and take bigger loans with the e-levy. In effect, e-levy would only give government the opportunity to do even bigger borrowing than they are doing now. So e-levy will not stop us from borrowing, because when you borrow, you must pay back. So I think this is very, very important. He also tried to rationalize by saying that when the reason they suspended the collection of tolls was that the tolls were not bringing in enough revenue. My brothers and sisters, it's a fact that in the 2022 budget, road fund is supposed to generate at least 2 billion Ghana cedis. In 2021, the road tolls accrued over 78 million Ghana cedi. A government that is, we are told, is broke, 78 million Ghana cedi could have paid at least NAPCO people. So it is not true to say that the 78 million Ghana cedi is not needed. We needed it. In any case, we are going to invest, they claim we are going to invest in, creating job for the youth, isn't it? We have other taxes. We have other taxes that are being collected to do the same thing. Why haven't they stopped those ones? They talk about other things, including sports and other, we are paying all those things. So for the record, we just want you to be aware and convey this to the Ghanaian, that contrary to government comments, that e-levy is to give us independence from the Bretton Woods institutions, i.e., so that we stop borrowing. Today you've heard it yourself. Subsequently, he tried to wiggle himself out of it by saying it is possible. That was not the answer he gave me when I asked him a direct question.
Also, Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South and former Deputy Minister of Finance, George Rickett Hagan, revealed that the minister's comment about the securitization of funds through e-levy allocated for road development shows that the government's intention is to borrow more, despite its much touted policy to generate revenue internally.
That by getting the e-levy, it will either stop or reduce the amount of borrowing that they do. But on the contrary, they actually want the e-levy to go out there and borrow more. When you look in the budget, you realize that there's a section that looks at how the deficit is financed over years, which they call the medium term. You will actually realize that as they have factored in the e-levy, the government will still be borrowing up until 2025, which is what they have in the budget. And the borrowing goes up every year, 2022, 2023, 24, 25. So it is actually not true that if they do the e-levy, they will stop borrowing. And they have demonstrated here today, the minister, by his answers, that they actually want the e-levy to go and do more borrowing. So this government is basically borrowing happy. That is basically what they know. And they will continue to borrow. But we want them to understand that they have to be accountable for all the things that they are doing. If not today, it will be tomorrow. The minister's answer to my honorable brother actually was quite shocking. I mean, a policy announcement was made in the budget, on the budget day. You go ahead and basically cancel what has not been approved in the budget for almost a month. That is clearly causing financial loss to the state, because you have even disrespected the law by going and
all forms of revenue into the road fund to build road infrastructure in the country, including the revenue from tolls. And Mr. Speaker, there are four main sources. And the four main sources, one is what we get from the fuel levy. Mr. Speaker, the almost 2 billion Ghana cedis expected to accrue into the fund. The fuel levy alone contributes not less than 94%. The other three sources, from the toll booths, from the DV sources, and from vehicles that transcend on the corridors of our country, the three together constitute nearly 6%. And the honorable member has been the long-serving, with all the experience of ranking member of the Roads and Transport Committee. The government, in its wisdom, has proposed the passage of the e-levy, to bring in more revenue to build the road infrastructure of our country for all of us. So government is looking forward to the passage of the e-levy that will bring in greater revenue, that will be securitized and then used to raise a bond, if possible. I am answering the question, so listen to me. I am answering the question. To raise a bond to build the road sector infrastructure. So government's direction and government policy is to bring in a better form of collection, because the toll revenue is built in.
At least to construct those roads. That was my question. So if the minister knew that he is not in charge of roads within cocoa enclave areas, then there was no need for him to come with answer. In all his answers, you will see that the concluding remarks is that consideration of those roads will be subject to availability of funds. So the issue was that there is no funds. And then my follow-up question was that these roads that I'm mentioning, they are within the cocoa growing areas. And 2022 budget statement, page 145, paragraph 696, that the government, through Cocoa Board, made allocation of 456.6 million Ghana cedis for cocoa road improvement program. Then these cocoa season, another 400 million Ghana cedis also has been allocated for same purpose. So my question was that, if you look at Prestia Huni Valley, we even have more than 2 cocoa districts. And one of the cocoa districts, that is Huni Valley Cocoa District, for the past 3 years, has been on the top of the list so far as production of cocoa is concerned. So if such facility or amount has been allocated, how can we leave out the district that has been on the top of production of cocoa for the past 3 years? So I was asking Minister why. I was expecting Minister to give a concrete answer. But the answer was that he is not in charge of cocoa roads. So maybe I have to file another question to bring Minister for Food and Agric to maybe come and answer these questions. In fact, as I stated, for the past 5 years, we have never benefited from even grading of any of these roads. And his answers are that they don't have any plans for those roads. So those state actors in the constituency who are saying that, oh, this road has been put on Cocoa Road and very soon you will see action. The minister is saying that they don't have any plans for those roads. And it's a very pity. Should people continue to use their money to grade the road for government to use it to convey their cocoa and all that? I quite remember about 3 months ago, between Pristia, Bondi, and Sutambiasi, the road block, there was a road block, and I was invited to join.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and
working together, bouncing back together. That's the theme of our 65th and independence anniversary celebration that will come off at Cape Coast. So far, we are told by the Chief of Staff and through a memo that they are unable to fund the celebrations across the regions. The regions will have to find a way of funding those celebrations. That is what we'll face tomorrow, and that is what we'll be discussing. The significance for national and African development. That is what we'll be looking at. 65 years of independence. What does it mean to national and African development? And then we'll spend some time talking about the economy. I'm sure you watched the video. I don't need to tell you what the road minister has said and what the responses are coming from every one of you who's watching and coming from Parliament, where they are facing a lot of resistance. Meanwhile, the minister and a retinue of government appointees were in the Volta regional capital of Ho yesterday, continuing with their meetings of citizens to take their views on whether or not they agree to the e-levy, sensitize people as to why they should be backing the e-levy. The real struggle will still go back to Parliament. So we'll be talking about the state of the economy at this time as we celebrate 65 years of Ghana's independence. And then we'll end in Ukraine. I had the unique opportunity of conversing with a student who was supposed to start lectures. He's a master's student. First lecture was on the 25th of February. 24th of February, bombing started where his university is located. He had to run for his life alongside with a friend and several others and start a journey from a place he called Kharkov all the way through now to Belgium. Has not been an easy journey. In the process, he's left his certificates, among other documents, with the university, and has told me he has no intention of returning to Ukraine. That's a story that several Ghanaian students based in Ukraine are telling. Question is, what do we do with them? But the bigger issue of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is what we'll be discussing today in our third topic. The panel is one I know very well, and it's wonderful to have them in the studio this morning. Let me start from my immediate left. Gabriela Tete joins us. A lot of freshness in the studio this morning. And then we have Alhaji, ABA Fuseni, of course, who is Member of Parliament for Senyarego. And of course, when he is always sitting on Alhaji and Alhaji, I have to acknowledge that I sit here and this program is here because himself and the late Alhaji Batre started this and it's grown into what it is currently. And it's always wonderful to see Mujib Rahman from the MVP Communications team. Of course, Mr. Kwesi Prajin will be joining us pretty shortly. He is the General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. So that's my panel for today. Thank you very much. You are the biggest part of the show. I would like to say a big thank you to our affiliate stations across the country. Thank you very much for giving us your platform. Let me say a big thank you to Volta One TV and another one to Ahunto Radio. And of course, on Facebook, we are on Pan-African Television. You can watch us and share your comments with us. On YouTube, we are also on Pan-African Television. That's the handle. Watch us, share your comments, and I'll read them as we go along in the show. Thank you very much for making time. Well, we'll start with the issue of the discussion of 65 years of independence. Does it still hold any significance for our national and African development? Because remember what Nkrumah said on that podium, on that fateful day. Well, Let me start with Alhaji of Sena. Good morning, Alhaji. And I hope you're well. It's wonderful to see you. I think first time in the year that we are meeting.
Trying to hold the progress of this country. So we will definitely let me not say that if somebody passes bad air, you know, overzealous to the talent, you bring out the reality. So I want to resist.
Okay, Alhaji, pardon me. We'll take a short break. When we'll come back, Alhaji will continue with his delivery. Just bear with us for a moment.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered.
The Progressive Woman's Show is that space for frank, open, honest, provocative, perhaps even revolutionary conversations about today's woman.
If you go to the
I have
banking
to leave
sector,
this one on.
there are people there who want to sleep with you.
Because I've seen you.
If you want to be a teacher, if you want to
Gabriela,
be a civil servant,
your sister.
there's someone who will say,
Because
I can get it for you easily. All you have to do is drop your pen.
It was something that was demanded of me. My editor, my news editor in the newsroom, thought if I don't pull down my skirt, I was not going to be put on air.
I am yet to come into contact with anybody asking me to sleep with him to go on TV. I will not sleep with any man for a position. I will sleep with the man I want to sleep with for the pleasure of it.
When governments come to power and they say that the women are not showing dynamism and the women, for me all that, forgive my Latin, this time of the day, all that is bullshit.
I practice public speaking in church.
Okay.
I practice service in church. I practice leadership in church. So those are things that's why the church is important in our lives.
And that's how you do it. It's not buy Range Rover and do something in church.
And do what? Takes me right there.
In church.
When you mention Jesus, you don't have to say Jesus. You have to say Jesus.
Well, they say it's a man's world out there, isn't it? Unfortunately, I don't know why, because we seem to be doing all the work. They are the head.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And Personality Profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational stories from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma Pratt. Still, the only TV show with a hat.
His people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people.
Welcome back from that break. Thanks all for sticking and staying with us. Alhaji was on the floor, so I'll go right back to him.
Yeah, let me thank you, Sena. I said I just wanted to resist the temptation of Mujib to dance himself lame even before the real dance. I've said it that if somebody passes bad air on you and you are overzealous to retaliate, you bring out the real thing. So I wanted to resist that temptation. We are entering the dance. Let him not start it before even the first drum beat. And I assure him that he will get tired even before the drummers get to the zenith. let me say a very good morning to your good self, to my sister. I've been seeing her on TV. I want to commend her for a fantastic job of educating and helping conscientize the people of this country, especially on women's issues. I've followed her religiously, and I'm impressed by the work he's doing. My comrade Kwesi Pratt. I thought by now he should have been at his this Pan-Africanist this in South Africa, but he's here with us. I know that maybe part of it may be, apart from maybe his busy schedule, also the fact that the Alhaji Foods project for independence must keep him in this country on such a very important occasion. So I want to salute him and my brother Mujib. I'm amazed about his continued, I should have used a better word, maybe if he can help me, but recalcitrance is the word that I have. Because I thought by now with the shambolic performance of the MPP and the fact that they have devastated this country, they have thrown the lives of millions of Ghanaians into ruin. I thought by now he would have been fed up and considering that he should come back to the party that has a vision, that has a commitment, that has a dedication, that has proven leadership to move this country to the better days when Ghanaians were not as even in the remotest sense to contemplate something like an e-levy. I'm sure that would have come. So let me salute the viewers of Pan-African TV out there, our technical people, and of course, the Blichina people of the Southern constituency, the evergreen Blichina people of the Southern constituency, whom I owe an irreparable debt of gratitude. I salute them. Sena, independence. First and foremost, let me take this opportunity to salute all the patriots who laid down their lives in the service of the liberation of our country from the yoke of colonialism, from the hundreds of years of slavery and servitude that our people were subjected to, and giving us the opportunity to chart a new dawn of freedom where the creative potentials of our people will be liberated. I want to pray as a Muslim. I want to pray to the Almighty Allah for those who laid their lives to have eternal rest in the bosom of the Almighty Allah, for the supreme sacrifices they made with paying for their lives for us to be able to live in freedom today. I want to salute all of them. Sena, it has been a very long way, if you trace it from the era of colonialism, even from the slave trade to colonialism, to the beginning of the anti-colonial struggle, when our forefathers started the fight against the colonial authorities. And in that sphere, every part of Ghana, I would say, took part in the anti-colonial struggle. Even in my own part, in Dagbon, in 1896, there was a very big battle at a place called Adibo between the Germans and the Dagombes on the outskirts of Adibo. And reports indicated that in spite of even the superior German armor, it battled on for more than 2 weeks. And so you can see, and various reports, this country is replete with various reports of various areas and resistance to the colonial intruders. And so that's a long story we cannot deal with here. But just to suffice that the clearer picture of the anti-colonial struggle, beginning with the formation of political parties, resistance movement, the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, to conscientize our people to resist the colonial order, culminating in the formation of the UGCC in 1947. And then the most epoch-making, the invitation of Kwame Nkrumah, Osagyefo, the legendary Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, to Ghana, and then Gold Coast at that time, to come and give brief a new lease of life in the inactive empty shell UGCC at that time. I'm sorry to use that word, because at that time, even though the UGCC was formed, it was more or less a club of the elite at Saltpong and others for them to meet, and the UGCC was not organized as a political party until the arrival of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He
started forming branches of the party, moving away from being an armchair politician, sitting and quaffing beer, and going into the field to meet the people, to organize, sleep with the masses. And that's how come, within a short space of time of the arrival of Osaje for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the UGC saw a rapid growth across many parts of the Gold Coast. And Sena, I've always said it that, see, if you don't realize the importance of your buttocks until there's a well on it. When Kwame Nkrumah's contribution there was an attempt to downplay his significance and his contribution to the UGC. When the CPP was born in 1949, the difference was clear. When Osajefu left the UGCC to found the Convention People's Party, with the Committee on Youth Organization and other youth bodies part of it, you could see the difference. And the results of the 1951 election spoke volumes of the organizational acumen of the CPP. So now, the sweetness of the pudding is not in the aroma, it's in the eating. It is the resource of Kwame Nkrumah's work on the ground that reflected partly in the 1951 elections. So even though Kwame Nkrumah himself, and as a fallout from the 1948 riots, when the people of the Gold Coast had gone on this and following the Christian Board Council shooting, I'm sure you are aware of that. All those are just paraphrasing because of there's a long history. The 1948 riots followed the shooting of Sergeant Ajite and others, and I salute all of them as patriots who laid their lives for this country. The Kwame Nkrumah was arrested. In fact, virtually all the other top UGC members, they ran away from responsibility over the 1948 riots. And in fact, sought to even put some of the blame on Kwame Nkrumah and labeled him that this was a group of communists who tried to stoke trouble. But Kwame Nkrumah owned up to it. And so you could see that politically, in 1951, when the elections were organized and Kwame Nkrumah was in prison, Sena, take judicious notice of this. Kwame Nkrumah was actually incarcerated, partly as the result of the 1948 riots and others. The colonial authorities were investigating. So at the time the election actually took place, he had no opportunity personally to go on the campaign trail. But Kwame Nkrumah's name, his work, his vision was already out there among the masses. And so in Accra Central, against Houghton Mills for the UGCC and others, Kwame Nkrumah comprehensively walloped him. He beat him like a drum. Even though he was in prison. So you see that this one is actively on the campaign trail, he's out there campaigning. Another is in prison, he has no opportunity to campaign. The results come, and the one who was in prison won by a huge landslide. That's good for him. And oh yes, but if you don't deserve sympathy, how will you get sympathy? You have to deserve sympathy. Today, if FPP was to go and court, let FPP say you want sympathy among others. So, you see, clearly, Kwame Nkrumah's victory then propelling him as the first leader of government business in Black Africa. I'm telling you the history that started being made. He was the first leader of government business in Black Africa. Went on to become the first prime minister in Black Africa. And then progressively on to the 1954 constitution that was brought. And the CPP won again comprehensively in that election. Let alone to Kwame Nkrumah and his peers, progressive peers, leaders at that time, independence should have come latest in 1956. But through a series of disturbances, culminating in the formation of the National Liberation Movement, Mujib and his people,
starting an orgy of terrorist attacks across many parts of the country. And I'm sure you heard the tales of even many attempts that were made on the life of Kwame Nkrumah and so many things, culminating in the British trying to intervene to see whether they could instill some sanity. And then, in the process, a delegation, and Sena, take note of this, a delegation was actually sent by the UP tradition to go and see the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, with Elizabeth, that we are not ready for independence. When Kwame Nkrumah was trying to table the motion of destiny for us to go for independence, they said that we were not ready for independence. In fact, the first preamble of this of their protesting read that, "Why are you in a hurry to leave us?" So now, this was what they were telling the British, so that why are the British in a hurry to leave us? After the hundreds of years of colonialism, slave trade, and other the UP tradition people see as the British that the time was not even enough. Why are they in a hurry to leave us? And ask them to stay, that we are not capable of managing our own affairs. Contrary to what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had, the black man, that any other person, was imbued with the requisite knowledge and expertise to manage his own affairs. They said we were not able to manage our affairs. And so they protested against the bid for independence. And thought that independence should be stretched many more years further down the line. That forced the British government to say that, look, this one should be settled in another election. And that culminated in the conduct of the 1956 election to decide the fate of this country. And comprehensively once more, Kwame Nkrumah walloped the UP. Indeed, even the next party, with even the other biggest were the Northern People's Party and others, not even the UGCs, which had it already consigned to the dustbin of history. And so, independence by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, led by Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and his peers, opened up the stages of development for us. And Kwame Nkrumah himself had no illusion about the challenges of independence. That's why in his broadcast to the people, he said that from now onwards, the Ghanaian needed to take a different mentality, a mindset no longer of a colonial people, but as a free, independent people who must work to develop their own country. And so if you listen to the speech of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah at the Independence Day, he admonished Ghanaians that the task ahead was difficult, but that coming together, guided by the vision that he was putting before the country, it was possible for us to build a very proud nation of independent, sovereign, and sustainable entity that Ghanaians can live on. And so that challenge was now thrown back to us. And Sena, the rest of the story, you know, the accelerated education brought, building of primary, secondary schools, teacher training colleges, everything, free education. So when I hear some people starting that they are the apostles of free education, we laugh, because it's like saying that you are more Catholic than the Pope. Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah at all levels, from independence, and the accelerated, following it up with accelerated 7-year development plan to build industries. Sena, the vision of Osagyefo in ensuring that Ghana's independence was guaranteed was anchored on this issue of our self-sustainability as a people, as a nation. And so you could see that we're building import substitution industries, the policy of indigenization, where the country itself will be able to take up leading industrial concerns and develop and produce for our self-sustenance. Because there's a lot of wisdom in the saying that a man who has his mouth in another man's kitchen cannot assert his independence and freedom. And so that's how come Osagyefo organized all these state enterprises to serve as the lead organ for the prosecution, the development and progress of the nation. So, Sena, you can see that under Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, from 1957 until the inglorious coup of 1966, laid a firm foundation for this country's socio-economic development. And it was, I'm sure maybe I was a year old when independence came. And obviously was not there to see, could not comprehend at my age. But I can say that at least I was a young pioneer when the CPP was overthrown in 1966. And obviously, Sena, the conscientization Kwame Nkrumah sought to give to the youth indicated to us that if that program had gone on, I can tell you that the patriotism and the love for the nation that is sought to cultivate in the youth of this country to be proud as Africans would have seen greater heights than what we are seeing today. Sena, the fact that today Ghana remains a united sovereign entity with many issues of tribal, ethnic, religious and other things that has devastated African countries except Ghana. It's a great tribute to the vision of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah in welding the various heterogeneous groups in this country into a monolithic whole. It is the product of the vision, commitment and dedication of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Many people didn't even know where Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah came, which ethnic group, whatever. This is it's after this overthrow that you had people bring it. Even I heard some strange stories of people saying that even Nkrumah was an Ivorian. Let it is. So you see the leadership, the commitment he had shown, the sacrifices he was prepared. He was a leader who, when he said this, he exuded that sacrifice. So when all the allegations of corruption and others were made against, when Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown, they couldn't establish one bank account he had. They couldn't establish landed property that Nkrumah had, and we all knew where even his own mother, Madam Nyaneba, was staying. This is leadership of sacrifice, leadership of example. Contrast that with the leadership we have today. That you have a president who says that our economy is broke, we don't have money. And then he makes a budget. And in the budget, almost everybody's this is cut. And then for the Office of Government Machinery alone, they move from 2.6 billion Ghana cedis to 3.1 billion Ghana. A whooping 500 million Ghana cedis increase for the Office of the President. And what do we see the money being used for? At a time when Ghanaians are suffering excruciating hardships, and even to get a meat to eat is a problem. The one who should exude sacrifice goes to rent a presidential, a private jet, causing, in fact, the figures are conflicting. We asked them to come to Parliament to clarify. They all ran away. Finance said it's not their domain. Defense said it's not their domain. National security, virtually, he came to say it's a national security issue. A jet that costs between $40,000 and $22,000 per hour. And when the defense minister was asked to come and speak on it, he said, it was to enable the president to bath. Bath at 34,000 feet. When Ghanaians are suffering excruciating hardship, this is how our leader responds to the hardship of the people. And so it is not as if we don't have we have a presidential jet. Is that not the case? Which is being leased out to Oponga. So if the jet is not airworthy, why do you give it to Oponga, whom you call your friend? So your friends will take it and go and die. Makifon, Senegal, he also, the jet also. So Ghana's presidential had become a trotro for other African head of states, even if it is unworthy.
But the first minister response, he didn't say that it was the president.
No, what did he say?
But you were in parliament.
No, I was in parliament.
Alhaji, we can go to the hands and take the comments of the defense minister. Look, I was in parliament.
You may not. You may not
allow you. When he's done,
but
you
sometimes
can
no, we are not arguing.
Mujib,
You may not be pleased with the
Mujib,
presentation.
Mujib,
Specific.
you were not in parliament. I was in parliament. I heard him. I heard him live.
But the news also.
You took it from secondary sources.
You took it. I want proceedings in parliament live.
Mujib, you took it from secondary sources. I was present.
But the records,
he said for the president to freshen up. It means what? Freshen up. Is it for him to roll in the mud?
But when you say freshen up, is it the only bathroom?
If I want to freshen up,
but you can, this your shirt you are wearing. You can decide to go here and change another shirt and comb your hair.
If you are just
also freshen up. It's freshen up, Alhaji. It's freshen up.
Really
so don't choose.
So I'm indicating that you can see the level. I'm making a contrast between Osagyefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and some of our latter day leaders. For you to see the quality of leadership that Osagyefo offered. And that is not somebody who was prone to grabbing wealth, state capture, to use the state to populate it with your family and friends, and open up the avenues of wealth grabbing for them. Today, look at the solid state in which the country is. No wonder the president is running away from the state of the nation address. Mugis, when are you going to have the state of the nation? Tell me. You are asking.
I'll tell you. But I'll tell you. Today, because we told you in parliament. Today, Today the
president has run away.
To where?
A state of the nation address.
Alhaji, to where?
It was supposed to be last month, February. Postponed. Because he has no message for the people. The message is all bad news. So today, look at the state of the economy. In shambles. Never in the others have we been so belated as a nation. Our economy now rank C, CAA1, junk. That's junk status. Those who claim they were better managers of the economy. Today, Sena, they have run our economy down. And the President Mama, whom they assail with all manner of invectives. And made allegations of incompetent management of the economy. What was our rating? Worst rating for the NDC was B. Not even B minus. Let alone to come to even see that they are in. That was worse. And so I've always said it, that the worst economic performance record in this country, the worst, is held unenviably by Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia. 0.4% in 2020. 0.4%. When you say they say COVID. And I said COVID or no COVID. Number one, that's your record. Number two, COVID was not restricted to Ghana. Even look at our neighboring countries. Cote d'Ivoire, under COVID, they grew 5 times what the growth of Ghana. 5 times. Cote d'Ivoire grew 2% in 2020. Go and check the record. Burkina Faso here, they grew 1.9%. Togo, they grew 1.8%. All of them 4 times better than the record. If you can't carry your head load, you blame your head part. They cannot. And so, Sena, I'm making this contrast so that you see the kind of degeneration this country has suffered since the demise of the Osagyefo and to the current crop of leaders who are superintending this country. So it was Bill Clinton of the President Bill Clinton of the United States who said that it is in times of difficulty when the exemplary style of leaders will be known and manifested in their works. So at a time when we say we are in such difficulties, this is where we had expected our leader to show that austerity. And if you like, when you read the 2016 manifesto of the MPP, where Nana Akufo-Addo says you are going around the country, you are seeing difficulty. When it comes, he is going to lead that example. Today, look at the lifestyle. Even Arabian kings who envy his lifestyle, his opulence and extravagance in government. To the point that even Sena today, a chair has V8, the president's chair. There's a V8 allocated with his chair. Wherever he goes, the V8 follows with a chair. Can you what kind of vulgar opulence again can you see? When even a chair is allocated a V8 for it to follow the president wherever he's going. What kind of leadership is this? Sena, this is the governance we are having today. And this is how sorry, way down the line Ghana has come. Under this hopelessly uninspiring government of Nana Akufo-Addo. So this is where we are today. You just read it. A very important occasion like the independence of this country. They say they have no money to celebrate. Am I lying? You read it.
But from which source? And who said?
Are you disputing?
No, from which? But give us the source.
You are
the source.
Call your. They said the chief of staff. It's from the chief of staff office.
Where is the source?
I said it's from the chief of staff office.
But where is the? Where is the letter? Which portal reported
you want people to present you here with the
no, but Alhaji, you can't concoct something. You can't substitute.
They are giving you the source.
And why is the source?
No, you read it. It's from the chief of staff office.
Sena, do you have? I don't know what you are saying.
I am saying that he's telling you clearly. You wanted the source.
The important thing is that
Mugib
Independence Day will be celebrated across the country. That is the important thing.
That's why I say that. You see, they say evidence is better than an oath. The evidence of the statement that today even the modicum of resources that you need to give to the regional coordinating councils to organize independence celebrations in their various regions. It's not forthcoming. It's not forthcoming. Zero. That speaks volumes of the crass incompetence and gross mismanagement of our economy. Clear. Today. Sena, how else would a government tell us that out of a budget of 147 billion, if you don't get a projected 6.8 billion, which constitutes money you are expecting from e-levy, you can't do anything. So to the point that today, if there's no e-levy, we can't build roads. If there's no e-levy, we can't pay our hospital bills. If there's no e-levy, we can't pay salaries. If there's no e-levy, now e-levy, like to quote Comrade Kwesi Pratt, has become like Akuba. It cures all disease. Everything is become like Akuba. e-levy. So does that not speak to the gross mismanagement of the economy? If you have handled the economy very well, will you need 6.8 billion? Will you? Because, like I said, things would have been so booming. Not too long ago, we had even yesterday, in fact, just even yesterday, there was a huge debate on the floor where in making a passionate appeal on members to, as it were, pay, contribute to pass the e-levy. The Minister for Roads indicated that some of these monies, or if the e-levy thing was bad, there was a possibility of getting it collateralized. That's passed a huge storm. And that is what this government has done. They have virtually collateralized everything. The GET fund, Sena, which was used to do an aggressive pursuit of infrastructure development in secondary and tertiary institutions. Today they have killed the GET fund. They've gone and collateralized the GET fund, and now they can't do any infrastructure in anything. So if you go to the GET fund secretariat, even their own people they appointed and put them there, they have done that. No money. Sena, for the first time, under the aegis of the Fourth Republic, I have never heard that the District Assembly Common Fund, not a single district has been paid to the assemblies. And we said it, and the finance minister wanted to challenge it. I would say you should give us how much they have paid. They have run away. Sena, the District Assembly Common Fund, by law, is 5% of total government revenue. So it's a statutory fund. When you declare that this is your total government revenue, 5% of it should be deducted and paid to the District Assembly Common Fund Secretariat. So now, the whole of 2021, in spite of all the deductions that the finance minister did, he didn't pay Kwenge. You know what he went and did? He rather went and told the District Assembly Common Fund Secretariat to go to bank and borrow money. To go and borrow money. What has happened to the 5% that you have deducted? Where is the money? Mujib, Shikanuway. And we are asking them to go borrow. So no wonder if you go to the assemblies, Mujib, even some of them, granules they have bought, they can't pay. Development at the local level is in comatose. Everything is in arrears. And I hope we will discuss the economy.
Yeah.
And you see how everything has gone up. I said it before, except something. So, Sena, you know what the state of our country is today. At the celebration of the 65th anniversary, many Ghanaians are wailing and mourning. And if you contrast it to the vision, the great forward march vision that the Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had when he led the good people of this country to fight for independence, it has been betrayed by some of the conduct and acts of commission or mission of some of our leaders today. No wonder, and I can say it without any iota of the Ghanaians are in a hurry to see the back of the Nana Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia government. And that is why I say we in the NDC must work hard to justify the confidence of the people in office. And resolve to do better, not to resolve to come and repeat some of the terrible things this hopelessly uninspiring government is doing to the people of this country. Okay. To come and do better, to justify the confidence. That is why the independence that we fought for, that people laid their lives down for, become more meaningful for many Ghanaians. We'll encourage them to continue to live up to the ideals that the Osagyefo and his forebears put forward, not only to liberate, but to work for the accelerated progress, work and happiness of the Ghanaian entity and the Ghanaian polity. That is what the Osagyefo strive for. That is what he laid his life for. Okay. That is the supreme sacrifice he and his compatriots were prepared to make. So we, the current crop of politicians, Sena, that if you are, by the grace of the Almighty Allah, you are given the privilege to serve, it is not by virtue of your wisdom or your innate qualities by yourself. It is just a rare privilege the people have given you. You have no duty than to serve the true interests of your people. That is why in the hallowed chambers of parliament, we have indicated that what the people of our various constituencies want. And that is why I wanted Mujib and his people likes to take note. That me, for instance, interacting with my people in the Sandaru constituency, they tell me that I should not make an attempt to go anywhere near E-levy. More than 98% of them, they don't want it. And the day you vote for E-levy, you won't come, don't come to Sandaru again. I've betrayed them. That is their inalienable right that they have sent me to parliament to come and protect. I must work to protect the interests of the people of Tanango. So, even MPP MPs, our colleagues, they tell us that there are people say they don't like the E-levy.
Alhaji is not true. Who said it? Alhaji, it's politics.
So, today, Sena, let me say it and end on this note. Because I've heard Mujib and his people in the MPP wage a crusade against Honorable Madam Adjua Safu. I want to salute the lady, not in terms of whatever issues may be raised about her absence in parliament, but even Sena for standing up to the interest, attempt to injure the interest of the people of Domi Kwabenya. Overwhelmingly, and some surveys have come out that overwhelming more than 90% of the people in Domi Kwabenya don't want the E-levy. So if they don't want the E-levy and their MP is contributing or indirectly by her absence is not participating in the passage of the E-levy, she's living up to the interests and aspirations of her constituents. And there can be no better service from a member of parliament than serving the supreme interests of your constituents. going to parliament and not thinking that because you are MP, you can do whatever you like, irrespective of the way your constituents think, irrespective of the interests of your constituents. You should pursue the interests of your constituents. And to that extent, I believe that the interests of the people of Domingo Abenya are being served by making sure that this obnoxious, wicked, insensitive e-levy is not passed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Alhaji Abi Efusini, Member of Parliament for Sena. We have had a discussion on the 65th anniversary of our independence. Like I said, the theme that the government has chosen is working together, bouncing back together. That's the theme, but we are looking at the significance of it for national development and for African development. That was very, very important to the great Osajifo. Well, Mujib was asking me for evidence. I couldn't have done that. This is, I'm going to quote a source. Honorable Roxanne Nelson Dapamekbo Esquire, who is Member of Parliament for South Dine, actually publishes the wireless message on his Twitter page. And if you like, I can read it to you. This is from Chief of Staff, Jubilee House, Accra, and all honorable regional ministers, regional coordinating directors, and is dated 2nd March 2022. Subject: budget constraint for 65th Independence Anniversary celebration. I am directed to inform your regional coordinating council that due to budget constraint, the office of the president cannot provide financial support to your council for the 65th March activities for this year, as has been the practice over the years. You are therefore entreated to be modest in our 65th Independence Anniversary celebration activities, counting on your usual cooperation on this matter. That's a wireless message.
Yes, publish the wireless
message. Let me do. In fact, it's even published on Ghana World. So let me do a few of the messages.
Who is not asleep?
Yeah. Let me do a few of the messages. I'll come to him shortly anyway. This is Dennis Akwete, who says, reflecting on this year's independence anniversary in the midst of the current happenings made me come to one conclusion. We may indeed be paying for our sins against Mother Ghana for overthrowing Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah at the wrong time by a visionless group of people whose offshoots, having opportunity to govern, did not only turn out to be 1,000 times worse, as we are seeing now, but just clueless monumentally. Today, Ghana's economy is not only messed up under President Anado, but appears to be almost near grounding. And it is just a matter of time, and we should see the full length of the frog as it is already unfolding on the exact reason for the proposed monstrous e-levy. Nkrumah's Ghana in leadership crisis when it matters most. I just can't fix it. That's from Dennis Akwete. Akusika Kpene is asking which radio station is airing the show. I thought Ahunto 92.3 FM was airing it, but a lot of us are indicating to me that they are not. So if you can manage Facebook for us, I think at this time, if you can manage, but if you can find a television station, a television set, digital, and see it before, it will be very easy. Pan-African television, you get to watch us. But across the region, we are broadcasting on several networks. Sela Radio in Dabala is broadcasting it. Somebody was asking that she's in Sugakope. You can go there. If you are there too, you can even try Shine FM, among several other affiliates in Volta region that you can listen to. A Global FM is in Ho. Alasan Sule is joining us. Hamza Isaka says, former president of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's legacy is unmatched. The political detractors can dilute Kwame Nkrumah's gains. His legacies will still rise above their delusions. Kwame Nkrumah's legacy is universal. If they think they can shut that dream, then they can only shut their dreams, not Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Happy Independence Day in advance. There's Korea Donko, who says, Pan-African Alhaji and Alhaji, a good work done for Ghana. God bless you all because of your goodness. You can get the message from Ghana. Thank you all. There's Suleimana Abdurrahim, who says, okay, the message is not so clear. Sabina Tete says, MPP not doing us any good. Just come and see, just in a week, Cape Coast is looking like Dubai. Street lights and major abandoned roads are being fixed, all because of the Independence Day. Surely you can do this. And all this while, you've been keeping mute. Yes, we are not full. The time will come. This is Angelina Nokwa, who says all the propaganda and emptiness could not win you power. We discerning Ghanaians know your true colors. Adamu Mohammed is also joining us on Facebook. Good morning. The MPP government and President Anado government are 419. The only thing that they've left for Ghanaians is hardship. That is why Ghanaians are crying, calling for ex-President John Mahama. Jagbo Adam says, good morning. Thank God for giving us another day. I'm very, I'm very happy that you're educating, that you people are being, okay. So he wants me to extend his greetings to ABA Fuseni. Emmanuel L. Kumidonko, Sena. So what is the government saying about the downgrading of Ghana in all reports in recent times? They went hale and hearty when they got B the other day. Abdul Salam Rufai says, I want to suggest this program. Okay, thank you. Noted. Your suggestion is duly taken. There's Kweku, is it? Kweku Adamujata says, we, the Africans, want to hear the history of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, CPP, and nothing else. Suleiman Abdurrahim says, they are not economists in this country because price of goods and services are increasing day in, day out. We cannot get solution to it. Where are the economists? Mujib, good morning.
Gabriela.
Yeah.
I am not, but I always think that that is not fair. You know, I will always register what I want to say because I felt you would have also come. Then I see your point, then I come, then Uncle Kosu Prato come.
Yeah.
But even there's no balance. So as it's not balanced, you try to balance it as to who speaks before the other.
Duly noted. Yeah.
I'm not saying you, but you. I'm even coming to you because you decided to distort the history of this country this morning, and that is highly unfortunate. Sena, thank you very much. It is fortunate to be celebrating our Independence Day today. That is the 65th Independence Day of the Republic of Ghana. And I think that would have been we are fortunate to have Alhaji ABF, the Honorable MP, and Uncle Kosu Pratt. They are the elders in this panel, telling us the history of this country, how it all started, where we started, and where we are, possible where we all anticipate to get to as a people. But listening to Honorable ABA Fuseni this morning is highly, I'm not impressive this morning because history is good and you need to always remind yourself about where you are coming from. Unfortunately, let the young ones also know where we were. Tell the history of your own country yourself to the younger ones. But unfortunately, when you tend to do pure partisan politics by contorting the history, that is highly, highly unfortunate. And Alhaji made certain issues that I felt that is not proper. Example is, so now we all read history and then we know where we started. So now, no one can dispute the fact that events leading to we gaining independence didn't actually start, or others didn't conceive the idea, and by trying in their own various little ways of putting pressure on the colonizers to leave us and give us our independence. But to just let people know, it was as a result of that the formation of the UGCC in 1947 happened. And it was because of the intention and the discussion ensued that some realized, who knew there's a young man outside there who is very vociferous and who is very active on the world stage. If he's being brought back, I think that he can contribute to the struggle towards the achievement of independence in this country. And it was as a result of that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was invited to join the United Gold Coast Convention. So if there was nothing like United Gold Coast Convention, and the idea of the United Gold Coast Convention was not to achieve independence, then what was the significance? And who would have brought Dr. Kwame Nkrumah into the shores of this country? That is number one. And that is why I said Alhaji decided to contort the history of this country. But today, I want again this morning to ask Alhaji the role, that system of the party politics or the political party structure, indeed, having changed that significant as what we have today. Take the largest opposition party, or largest parties in this country, for instance, the New Patriotic Party, the National Democratic Congress, the CPP, the rest. the role of the General Secretary, my party constitution, which is in conformity with the national constitution, the role of the General Secretary is the administrative officer of the party, the chief scribe, responsible for the day-to-day running of the political party. To just remind Alhaji, he is a member of parliament. He doesn't occupy, but his General Secretary is hopping around the country, trying to put the structures of the party active and in proper shape. For what? To be able to garner more votes and win the general election, which is impossible anyway. So that was significant, and that is exactly what Kwame Nkrumah did. To become the General Secretary of the party at that time, your role was not to sit down in Accra and be comfortable with your seat and just be issuing correspondences. That is not how General Secretary works. I had the opportunity as a young man learning politics to work with a General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Kobna Ajia Japan, at the party national head office. And I could see his work. There's no week or two that will pass the General Secretary will not travel outside the country to a constituency or a region to interact with party people, give directives, and make sure the party is running at that particular locality. And that itself gives you more advantage over the rest. That is significant. Because you interact with the people. Somebody, as a chairman, you become like a ceremonial chairman. And your responsibility is to direct the regional, national general secretary to call for meetings and other issues. So, Alhaji, that was significant. So, for that matter, the role of the general secretary, whether we like it or not, would have put Dr. Kwame Nkrumah ahead of his colleagues, just like we are seeing today. Alhaji, you can't dispute the fact that your General Secretary, General Asedun Katia, is popular in NDC. That is true because of the role of the General Secretary. If you want to perform, if you want your party to achieve, then you must do some of these things I'm saying. But if you want to be like you are supervising over a party that you don't want to be active, that is where we will always be found in Accra on radio station. And Alhaji, the work is not on radio station or TV. The work is on the ground. And General Secretary must always be on the ground to make sure the party machinery function very effectively. Exactly what Dr. Kwame Nkrumah did. It wasn't any extraordinary that maybe people just want to discredit others. My problem is, I'm not disputing the fact that Kwame Nkrumah didn't play a significant role in achieving independence for the people of Ghana. No. But at least, let's also be magnanimous as a people. Because of the future, because of the younger generation, let's don't change the history of this country. And let us always tell the children the truth. By crediting others too, and by telling, but this was the man, when he came, this was how he contributed. And finally, he gained independence for the people of this country. Alhaji, what will it take you to say it in this context? It won't change anything. And so now I want to give a scenario. Certain people who led struggles in their own country, example, Nelson Mandela, was put in jail 27 years as we have learned, and that is the truth. But when he was released, if there were no others, after he was taken, others there to continue the struggle, Alhaji, when he was released, could he have even found his way to ANC headquarters in South Africa? Obviously no. But others were there, even though he was finally taken, but others were there to continue the struggle, hoping and fighting to get him back, to continue the struggle. That is how it is. And it is not only one person, but let us always acknowledge. You even gave example, the Aboriginal Right Protection Society. All this were all impetus, jeering, struggling towards independence. Was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah there around that time? No. But fortunately, when he came, he added more vigor and more struggled to the whole process and eventually succeeded in gaining independence for the people of Ghana. So we credit him for that. But let's credit the rest who also started it, who also contributed their role, the forefathers, the women, the men at that time, the younger generation at that time, who saw the need that we need independence. Then we succeeded. And just tell the history as it is. But Sena, that is the history aspect of it. But let's take a stock of where we are now. Yeah, it is also significant. Let's go to the development aspect. There are many things one can point that Nkrumah succeeded in getting. That is still significant to the economic progress of this country. Talk of Akosombo, a whole lot. Uncle Kosu practice. I know you take us through all those things. Some of us can remember some of them, but significantly. But we were all hoping that even in spite of that, as he was overthrown, but this significant achievement, those who came after him would have been able to maintain and put Ghana on that level. So today, Sena, we would have been talking a very good history of ours when it comes to economic progress. We would have been talking good when it comes to political progress. We would have been talking good when it comes to our cultural set and cultural progress, all the sectors of this country. But as a young man reading the history of this country, it's unfortunate that at a point in our life, things stalled, and even though there were intermittent coup d'etats, whether you take the democratic aspect or those who came through the barrel of the gun, their intentions was to develop this country economically. But did they succeed? Did we get there? Now, unfortunately, no. That is why today Alhaji tend to just cue the discussion of trying to lump certain individual of their flamboyant and then bourgeoisie lifestyle. But Alhaji, Kwame Nkrumah, as a young guy, I've seen pictures. They never, I don't know whether that time they were V8 and luxurious vehicles, but I could see that Kwame Nkrumah and co never used those cars to run the affairs of this country. But currently, the crop of leaders we have cut across. I just don't want to single one political party. Alhaji, I would have wished today the time NDC came under Chairman Rawlings, when we metamorphosed from a military regime to a constitutional governance. There could have been a decision that we want to be modest. We want to modest as much as possible. So let's don't go in for luxurious vehicles. But there were only those Land Cruisers, old type we can mention. And those were the fanciful cars at that time. Alhaji, we got it wrong from that beginning. We didn't care about the actual development of this country. We wanted to satisfy ourselves, especially those who happen to be the ruling class. So moving forward, we have been improving on this. Alhaji, what is the essence of bringing in these Land Cruisers and all those things for ministers and MPs and the chief executive and others? Let's all decide that we want to build our country and be prepared to live a modest lifestyle. But that is not what we are experiencing today. That is not what we are experiencing today. So my worry is, if you just get the opportunity, then you want to put the blame on the current leadership who are steering the affairs of this country, knowing very well that you were also there yesterday. What did you do to change the status quo? And what did you do? Were you living a modest life? No, you were not living a modest lifestyle. You can take off the appointment of ministers. You can take off the salaries of ministers. We can do the comparisons, Alhaji. What is so significant in terms of difference about what we experienced somewhere 2009 getting to 2016 as against what we are experiencing today? No, Alhaji, you get the opportunity. Tell me, Alhaji, what was the modesty? What was the modesty?
Look at the numbers.
What was the modesty? Alhaji, how significant is the numbers?
I don't want to.
How significant is the numbers?
I don't want to.
No, how significant is it? But you get the opportunity. So, Sena, in totality and in reality, we haven't seen any difference. We haven't seen much difference in terms of giving a leadership style that jet towards uplifting the people from poverty and improving on the economic progress of this country. Alhaji, we all fall victims. Whether NDC or the NPP, at least we have the opportunity, we can chart a new path. That is very significant. But Alhaji, if we want to continue on this path, can you assure us there, in the unlikely event that the NDC found their way in power, you use V8?
Obvious.
No, I will use obvious. You use V8. Alhaji, you use it in it's an urban constituency. It's an urban constituency. It's not a rural constituency. I know your constituency. You don't need V8. You just need a simple car, a pickup. You can go around the whole constituency. You don't need a V8. But that is where we are, and you are not the only one. Maybe others started it before you also joined. So I want to see a parliament, a future parliament that will be sincerely advocating for modesty and taking the executive to the corner and pinching them down that no, we have to change our lifestyle, we have to change the way we do things because of the general public of this country. So, Sena, so when you see them, because they found themselves on the other side of the divide, now they now become professors and now become the most modest people in this country. But the next they give them the opportunity and see where you will see them, what you will see them doing. So that is my worry, and that is where I found that we are very, very hypocritical when it comes to the development in general about the country. We have to walk the talk. We have to be committed in our country progress, because that is the only country we have. So now look at our educational sector, look at our health sector. Even sometimes 65 years down the line, is it proper? The complaints, the number of people that still lost their life as a result of bad rules. Alhaji, I have traveled to Takoradi many times, especially when I go into the cocoa growing areas. I become so sad that this is a region that have helped this country over the years. But when it comes to road infrastructure, Alhaji, it's nothing to write home about. So you want to blame MPP at 86 years today, when others had the opportunity many years to study the affairs of this country, or the region just existed today. So Alhaji, when it comes to infrastructure blame, let's share it. That is the only way we can move forward. I always say, those who had the opportunity to study the affairs of this country 11 years, 19 years, Alhaji, could have done us good today if we had the Courage Road connecting to every region in this country. So that today the newer ones will have other things to do in terms of provisions of health infrastructure and not connecting our main route through dual routes. But we haven't done it. Alhaji, we saw state organizations you have mentioned under what we call the is it the structure adjustment program? All these things were sold to ministers and functionaries of government. Today you go to the regions, those buildings are there and they are owned by politicians. And we are quiet. Nobody is saying anything. Alhaji, you know, under whose reign that happened? State factories and state companies were auctioned to individual politicians. You know it. But today you want to blame the you may blame, but Alhaji, if you are sincere and genuine about the progress of this country, our lacking behind in terms of development should be a shared one. But apart from Nkrumah and Buzia, I always say Kufuor did extremely well. The rest, they mess up this country. Well, Buzia came with his rural industrialization and infrastructure program. When I was growing up, my sports stadium was very nice. So at a point I asked, under whose reign was this sports stadium built? What sports stadium? And they said it's under Buzia. It's still there. That's where we play our matches. Those days, but they're still strong. You go to Laura, it's there. You go to Tumu, it's there. And it's clear. So why should we be hypocrites about ourselves? If NDC is modest and MPP is modest, I think that we can build this country. And they are all guilty of what we are discussing today. We haven't achieved anything in terms of political progress, economic progress. We are lacking behind after 65 years of independence. Alhaji, you made a significant point by saying that others at a point didn't want us to achieve independence. Alhaji, I bet you today, if you and I can go and look for support and do a research about those who genuinely wish that our independence, is it important or is it helping us or would have been under the tutelage of the colonial masters, Alhaji, the results will be marvelous. You'll be surprised. But look at other countries that we gained independence before them in terms of infrastructure and others. But you don't listen to people. You don't listen to people. What is the common man want? The common man want development. So, Sena, but he veered into the economy, and then he made certain revelations that again is not accurate. Before PP came in 2016, I know for a fact Road Fund was collateralized. They used Road Fund and contracted a loan from Zenith Bank And when we came, we have to restructure it, and it even took government a period of time to be able to settle some portions of debt that were there. But Alhaji, why wouldn't we collaterals get fund to be able to raise money after all the projects that you have awarded and couldn't pay the contractors before you left office? When we came, government indeed is a continuous process. We need to find money of paying those contractors. Some of the projects were half completed. We needed them to complete so that they can be useful to school children and this kind, and the dining halls, dormitories, etc., etc. So we needed to do something. We had to find money. You are accusing us today that the money, you borrowed money and left. You borrowed money and left. Was our sheets and books clean before you left? When you left and left those borrowed, who will come and pay the money? We will have to pay the money. Allah, you remember when we came the first stage, we have to do amortization to be able to get time to regularize things, to start paying. We started with paying. But the point is, when everything was okay, when everything was done, Alhaji, then we wouldn't have been where we are. But we saw we don't pay, don't pay. So that is where we are, Alhaji. But my thing that it all is not lost. We can still get out of all these challenges that we are facing as a nation when we decide to put partisan, Alhaji, and face the reality. Did you listen to Atuguba? Did you listen to him? You are a member of parliament. And I believe listening to Atuguba, Alhaji, you soften your stand. You accuse us of not doing consultations, not talking to the people of Ghana. We accepted. Now we are going around town hall meeting. We went to Tamale. The people of Sanergo were represented. And we had the opportunity to explain to them the importance and why they have to embrace e-levy. They also had the opportunity to ask questions. What is bothering them? What they don't understand about that? They ask the question. So Alhaji, on what basis today, if you go to parliament, you say you won't vote for e-levy? Unless, of course, it's a pure partisan.
Okay.
You can ask Alhaji.
You act before you think.
But it doesn't matter, Alhaji.
Oh, that's a simple question I just asked.
No, Alhaji, I'm coming. Alhaji, you are a member of parliament. Let's be sincere.
Please learn from me so that
Sena, you gave Alhaji much time. I was looking at it. Well, I haven't even gotten even to half of my time.
Learn for me, please. Please learn for me. Okay. Please learn for me.
Okay. You go on.
I say you should learn.
No, but I was not in the air. So I was not in the air. So don't be diabolic this morning.
let me read just a few messages, one or two messages from YouTube. Dami Magolders, if our leaders were good enough to help us build a better Ghana, who would have gone to Ukraine? There's one that says, just only said Ghana. That's all. Thank you. Please share a few more messages on YouTube. And let me read Kojo Chumbafo, who says, Sena, tell Mujib that I will spare him today. Because today is his nephew, Rahim's birthday. And since Rahim is my son, I will be gentle with him. But Mujib, in all sincerity, you are at your incoherent, incongruous West. That's coming from Kojo.
Tell him I said he wasn't modest.
A.U. Farouk in Tamale North says, good morning. Indeed, MPP cannot overturn the dynamic history of the country. They did all they can to cancel the name of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, but they vehemently failed and will continue to fail anytime. There's also Musa Batwa, who says, Sana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mbaumia have emptied the coffers. They should consider curtailing wastage in the system through corruption, misappropriation, and underhand dealings. According to Auditor's General Report from 2017 to 2020, and the money that has been dashed to Sarah Ajosafo to chop freely can solve problems that e-levy is purported to solve. We won't accept e-levy implementation today or tomorrow, period. That's coming from Musa Batwa. There's also this one coming from Dr. Percy. Okay, I think he's just providing. He's not even addressing the issue we are talking about. He hasn't even gone there yet. I think there's something else that he was drawing my attention to. Jonas says, let's all reflect for once and look at this common sense. Ken Ofori-Atta wasted 20 to 21 billion to close down banks And the same person is asking Ghanaians to pay 1.7% from their mobile wallet to raise 6.9 billion. Your guess is as good as mine. There's Ambassador Sampiale, who says it is unthinkable for any right-thinking Ghanaian to even attempt to discuss the personality and governance practice of the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to the current president. Kwame Nkrumah took just 9 years to develop Ghana's infrastructure and education, health, and agriculture, major township, etc. from scratch. It has taken the present 5 years to rewind and reverse everything Kwame Nkrumah built. The only thing that you cannot destroy is the name Kwame Nkrumah. There are several other messages coming. I'll read some of them as we go along in the show. Gabriel?
So one of my favorite quotes by Nkrumah. And it says, as far as I'm concerned, I'm in the knowledge that death can never extinguish the torch which I have lit in Ghana and Africa. Long after I am dead and gone, the light will continue to burn and be born aloft, giving light and guidance to all people. South Africa had Mandela. Ghana, we have Kwame Nkrumah. And as much as some elements within Ghanaian society, since the time of the colonial days to present day Ghana, have attempted to extinguish that light still burns bright. Not just for this nation, Ghana, but also for the continent of Africa and the rest of the world. That the black man is capable, the black man is gifted, talented, and when he puts his mind and his passion and his drive and commitment behind a vision to drive the black race, Africans, black Africans, and the black race can also achieve beyond even what other races have been able to achieve. Our challenge really, for me, is two things: leadership and the ability to drive the mindset of the people behind. Here we are coming to celebrate 65 years of Ghana's independence. And I've already forgotten what you said the theme was, because it didn't even sit with me. It's difficult to try and rationalize a government that is telling me that let's work together to kickstart a nation, to bounce back, when that government itself is not taking the necessary steps for me to believe in what they are projecting. And until you have leaders who are able to galvanize the mindset of a collective group, not as political ideologies, but as a collective unified group, we are Ghanaians. Despite our ideologies, despite our differences, despite our ethnic divides, we are first and foremost Ghanaians. And the ability to push our passions behind that vision to drive our nation forward. Without a doubt, this country stands tall in the League of Nations on the continent. Ghana is a very respected nation amongst the League of countries, largely because of the pillars that Osajifo planted in and on this continent. During the time of COVID, the AU mobilized together with the African Development Bank to procure vaccines for member countries. I'm not sure many countries or many citizens were aware that they had done that. Aside that, today as we sit, we are very much aware that we have a continental free trade agreement that we are supposed to build our various economies in order to be able to trade amongst ourselves. These are the visions that Kwame Nkrumah had for the continent. And the driving force of that was supposed to have been this very nation on whose soil we stand on. But today, what do you see? Our own president is the chairman of ECOWAS. And yet, right under his watch, he's lost 2 nations to coup d'etats. But you mentioned the word coup in this country. And it's as if you have poked them with multiple acupuncture needles in all the wrong places. They've become so sensitive to certain words, simple, plain English words, French words like coup d'etat, and they are all jittery. Why? Because of the state in which we find ourselves currently as a nation. I was listening to Mujid rant about how 65 years we see nothing. I disagree with that analogy. I think that for 65 years, we have come a long way from where we started from. Nkrumah himself said, when you think about our achievements today, don't forget the depths from which we came back from. We've come a long way, but there's still a lot we can do, because look at the potential of the black race. There is no doubt in my mind that we are capable of so much more. The negative attributes within us, the pull him down syndrome, when a nation, a group of people build themselves up. Let's use the same banking sector text that you read. When a group of people pick themselves up to take commanding heights of certain sectors of the economy, and then we come in as a government, and because we don't approve of how certain things were done, we just destroy even more than what we sought to cure. You've spent 21 billion to address a banking sector crisis. And somebody still has to explain this thing to me, because I still can't understand. Was it the case that the banks, or these banks that were annihilated, had actually used up people's deposits and their accounts were in zero, and that's the reason why we have to spend 21 billion? Because I'm unable to rationalize the expenditure of 21 billion and the closure of some, 11 banks. Where were their deposits? Bad debts happen all the time in the banking sector. It's up to Bank of Ghana and the Association of Ghana Banks, or whatever they call themselves, to look at how to curtail or to minimize the risk of exposure to avoid bad debts, non-performing loans. But to tell me that we have to spend 21 billion, and we are still spending, mind you, because day in, day out, what's the name of the man they put, they call him, what's the title they gave him? No. Anipa. Yes, but there's a particular name they're giving him. He's supposed to be paying people, all these men's gold and co. He's supposed to be paying them some monies. And he's still looking for money. So aside that 21 billion, we are still incurring more debts on this, whatever reforms you brought into the banking sector. A lot of things doesn't set right with that thing. And I'll tell you something again. One reason why I love Nkrumah so much is as if that whatever it is that happens in your society, Nkrumah, for some odd reason, had it within him that this is what we ought to be, but this is not what it is that we are. I'll give you another quote of his, which was one of a favorite of mine, when he said, "Countrymen," and I'm saying it's in relation to the banking sector issue, not a political statement. "Countrymen, the task ahead is great indeed, and heavy is the responsibility, and yet it is a noble and glorious challenge, a challenge which calls for the courage to dream." All these entrepreneurs were dreamers. The courage to dream, the courage to believe, the courage to dare, the courage to do, the courage to envision, the courage to fight, the courage to work, the courage to achieve the highest excellencies and the fullest greatness of man. Dare we ask of more in life? If, looking at the state we are in right now as a country, it's obvious that a lot of things are not going right with this country. We'll go to the economy, so I'll keep some of my comments on the state of the economy for later. And also, not to talk so long, so Mr. Price can also have, because he's the real historian here. I'm a latter-day saint in history. I'm more of the modern African than the original Pan-Africanist. So, Sena, it's obvious a lot of things are not going right with our country and with our continent. But we've still chalked some successes. It is up to us to exude the characters and the values that will drive us forward. The world is not waiting for Africa. The world is moving along. Africa has to rise up to the giant that she truly is. Day in, day out, we all know the prospects ahead of us. We know who we are. We know what we are. But the courage to dream, the courage to envision, the courage to dare, the courage to do, as Osajifo kept drumming at us. 65 years in post-independence Ghana. And to this very day, we are still having a challenge with leadership. The current crop of leaders we've had in this country have been people who have been honing their skills from the past 40-something years, as long as I have been alive. Our current president, when I first heard of him, I was in primary school. And we expect so much from such people, but they deliver for us so little. And they cover it up with so much grandiose promises and pomp and pageantry. The world has moved on from the era where you could use flowery words to cover and galvanize everything. Thanks to development, these days when you go and buy an item, one of those days when you buy an item and they tell this one is made in Taiwan, you know exactly the quality of product you bought. Today, when they give you this made in China, it's not a bad thing because they've progressed, they've advanced, they've done well. Quality has changed. And the quality of leadership of our nation also has to change. The era where our leaders have this belief that it is the people who have to come and worship them. It is the people who have to provide for all their needs. It is the people who have to do everything for them. You just come and occupy that space, enjoy the luxuries of the office, and then when your time ends, you go. That era ended a long time ago. And the people expect more. Whether we'll get to the promised land or not depends entirely on the leadership that goes with us. And this is a challenge I'm throwing to every single politician who aspires to leadership in this nation. Do not just come with a vision. Come with the ability to drive us all along with you. In Nkrumah, another quote of mine, of his, that I liked, when he spoke about the new African, and he mentioned that Africa needed a new kind of leader, a man who abhors greed and vanity, and whose humility was a strength. I've summarized it. Africa at this moment in time, and especially our country, Ghana, needs that kind of leader. We no longer want a leader who thinks that the taxpayers' money is at his disposal to enjoy himself and his family, he and his family to enjoy themselves living in opulence. We no longer want that kind of leader. We want a humble, dedicated, visionary leader. A man who abhors greed and vanity. Like when Alhaji Sena was talking, and he said that at the time when Kwame Nkrumah was leaving office, they couldn't even trace a bank account to him. They couldn't even trace a house to him. Present day Ghana, how many politicians will go to Jubilee House and will come out and then they'll ask them, how much is in your bank account? And he'll tell you, I didn't even have a bank account. Even you, the citizens, will be shocked. But can we dare ask for a leader like that, who will put himself second and put our nation first? We'll be going to Ukraine and Russia again, and the global challenges that is also presenting to us. We're already feeling the pinch on the price of fuel, and it's going to be worse. It's going to go all the way to the price of bread, because Ukraine was the largest producer of wheat, and we're importing wheat for flour. So price of wheat is going to go up. Price of flour is going to go up. Price of bread is going to go up. So the consequences of the global geopolitical winds that are currently blowing will have a telling effect on our nation. If you want us to come together and to bounce this economy or bounce whatever your 2022 Sixth March theme is, I must see, first of all, leadership, that you are genuine in what you are telling me. There was this debate on whether Honorable Fema actually said they can't finance Sixth March. Is it not a shame? 65 years. 65 years. You can't even fund a celebration of our independence. So now it has humbled you.
Tell people that you have seen it.
It has now humbled you to the reality. It is a shame. 65 years. But our president for the past 2 years has been flying all over the place. Our government, led by Chief Honorable Firma and President Akufo-Addo, are excited to be sending out jets to pick people just so they can get one vote for a bill they've still not been able to pass. We should be serious in this country, and our government should learn humility, because where we are going as a nation and as a race, the leadership that is required to get there is not represented in this NPP. It is not represented in shape, in form, in size, in color. It is just not existent in this NPP. And if for the next 2 years of the administration, since they are afraid of the word coup, if in the next 2 years of the administration, they continue going in this tangent, I am not going to go for a coup. But even if there was to be one, and even if I was to see that there was going to be one, I can bet my last city that I'll be quiet and I'll watch for it to happen. Because I've come to the firm conclusion that, like the words of, was it Wole Soyinka, who said that the beautiful ones are not yet born? Chinua Achebe. Amatedu. Niyama. Ayukweyama. The beautiful ones are not yet born. I pray that they have been born and that they are somewhere. And wherever it is that they are, they should please show up, because this country really needs a paradigm shift in leadership. I'm done. As for the history, we leave it to Mr. Pratt.
And I'll go to him shortly. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabriela. Let me read a message from Positive Change in Medina, who says, the currency of leadership is trust. It's unclear whether any Ghanaian will take promises from Akufo-Addo and his appointees serious again. It is regrettable that this government has abandoned its own promises made to us when they needed our votes. There's Wude Duje, who says 5 years after independence and over 100 years of gold and other mineral materials mined and sold, these mining towns are as poor as our city. Nuhu Abdul Hamid said we should not let anybody fool us. Okay, why are prices shooting up more than bullets in this country? What is our crime to vote for Nanado? And there's, let me read a few more that are coming in currently. Zachary Akibu says even Nkrumah was left to govern peacefully, as it happened as it happened in Malaysia, in Singapore, in Indonesia, and Korea, and Nkrumah was left to rule Ghana similarly to those countries' leaders who ruled their countries for many years. Ghana would have been better compared to those countries if Nkrumah was left to govern peacefully. Ghana would have been a better place compared to those countries. During Nkrumah's era in government, Nanado's family thought ruling a country is as easy as pounding fufu for families without any vision in mind. Abdurrahman says when Nkrumah said the black man is capable of managing his own affairs, he actually never included Akufo-Addo, Bawumia, and co government until the inception of this crop of MPP diabolic ideologists. Black was capable of steering and managing his own affairs. There is Ibrahim Washara, who says the man who said the independence of Ghana is meaningless until the whole of Africa is free. That is deep from a leader. George Coleman says, tell Madam Gabriela that they have still not paid the deposit of Goku's fund management. Simon Keleto says, good morning to you and your panel. It's obvious that UGCC did not contribute to independence. Why? Nkrumah said self-government now, but they said self-government within the shortest possible time. Mr. Pratt.
Well, tomorrow, we will be marking the 65 years of Ghana's independence. I think it's important to point out that this observation is not something which is reserved for Ghanaians alone. The independence of Ghana on March 6, 1957 was a signpost for many, many, many people across the world.
gave them inspiration. They owned it. They worked for it. So tomorrow's anniversary is an anniversary for the broad Pan-African movement throughout the world. Tomorrow's anniversary is an anniversary for the Cuban people. Tomorrow's anniversary is an anniversary for the national liberation movements who took inspiration from it. Tomorrow's anniversary is an anniversary for all freedom people throughout the world. It's important for us to recognize that as far back as 1945, in Manchester, in the United Kingdom, Pan-Africanists from all over the world met. And the leadership of that meeting included Alhaji Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And they declared that we needed to struggle to break the yoke of classical colonialism. We needed to build a new independent Africa under the banner of socialism. That was a clarion call. That was a clarion call which led to the mass mobilization leading to the independence of Ghana on the 6th of March, 1957. So tomorrow's event has its internationalist dimensions. Tomorrow's event has its Pan-Africanist dimensions. Tomorrow's event is an event that will be celebrated throughout Africa and its diaspora. You know, if you look at history, the establishment of the independent Republic of Haiti is a major event for black people all over the world. Because Haiti was the first black republic. Haiti under Toussaint Louverture was the first black republic. Another event which has significance for Africans all over the world is the establishment of the state of Liberia 200 years ago, when African slaves were returned to West Africa to establish a republic. That's important. After that comes Ghana's independence. Ghana was the first independent country, independent African country south of the Sahara. First. And that also has major significance for Africans everywhere and so on. But Sena, it is important for us to recognize that Ghana today is not the Ghana that our forebears who fought for independence wanted to establish. Ghana today, as it is many miles away from the dreams of people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, people like Alhaji Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, people like George Padmore. This is not the dream that they wanted to bring into reality. Indeed, in the struggle for independence, those who waged that battle for independence never envisaged that 65 years later, mobilizing resources for a parade, school children's parade, will become a headache. They never dreamt, it was not in their wildest dreams, that the mobilization of resources for a school children's parade will become a problem. Those who fought for independence, those who waged the battles to free us from the colonial yoke, never imagined that 65 years later, we will be so engulfed with debt, so engulfed with debt, that after paying for 2 line items in our budget, we would not have money for anything. They never imagined that 65 years later, this is what we will get. Those who fought for independence, those who struggled for independence, never imagined that 65 years later, a serious and senior activist of a political party in Ghana can say that being under colonialism was better than what we have today. They never imagined it. They couldn't have imagined it. They couldn't have imagined that 65 years after independence, we are importing virtually everything. Fish, toothpicks, kontomire, plantain, tomatoes, guinea fowls, and so on. They never imagined. In fact, if Nkrumah were to wake up and come back to Ghana today, he would collapse from shock. Nkrumah would simply collapse with shock that the country he left us is importing guinea fowls. That the country he sought to build is importing fish. That country he risked his life to build is importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso. How can Nkrumah accept this and believe this? Modibo Keita, Sekuturi, all of them, if they were to come back to Ghana today, we would be shocked at where we are. This is not the Ghana that those who struggle for independence wanted to build. Perhaps one of their biggest shocks will be that today in Ghana, we are either inviting a coup, or we are saying that it is possible, or saying that it must happen. I mean, this is unimaginable. Unimaginable. How can Modibo Keita believe, if he were to come back today, that this is the level we have reached? That we have come to a level where people in academia, where senior political activists, where knowledgeable people are so desperate, they become so desperate that they are saying that, hey, let a coup come. That's a mark of desperation. The people who say that a coup is possible, the people who say that the coup must happen and so on, are desperate people. We have driven them to desperation. We have driven them to the point where they look at where we are and they look at our leaders and they say, there's no hope. You can't get anything out of this. So let whatever would happen, happen. People are looking for breathing space, just small space to breathe. Even if they can breathe for 5 minutes, they are happy. Because right now, there is no breathing space. They can't breathe. Like George Floyd, they are being suffocated gradually to death. There's desperation in our land. Serious desperation in our land. That's where we are. And those who fought for independence cannot or could not have imagined that this is where we'll be arriving today. Look at us. We fought for our independence to achieve 3 goals. 3 goals. One of the goals of our independence struggle was to create favorable conditions so that our people can choose their own leaders freely in democratic elections, so that our people can choose their own leaders. Today, look around Africa. What value would you place on periodic elections in Africa? Our leaders are amending constitutions in order to extend their terms. or to allow them to contest for third terms and so on. That's what our leaders are doing in Africa. Look around Africa. How many of our elections are truly free and fair? How many of our elections are truly free and fair? So even the right of our people to freely elect their own leaders has been subverted. So subverted that our people are beginning to lose hope in the so-called democratic experiment. I watched a video of a demonstration in Guinea against the ECOWAS leadership, and I could not believe my eyes. Hundreds of thousands of people, if not 1 million and more people, pouring into the streets of Conakry to say to hell with the leadership of ECOWAS and to say that they support the coup d'etat in Guinea. Can you believe it? What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong to incense all these multitudes against a so-called democratic experiment? What did we do wrong to drive the hundreds of thousands of people who poured into the streets in Burkina Faso to support a coup d'etat? What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? What did we do wrong in Mali? This is our reality. And this reality has nothing to do with the dreams and vision of Alhaji Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Look, we cannot ignore the fact that today, at least in West Africa, there's mass resentment against France as a colonial power. Mass resentment against France. When the French decided to withdraw their troops from Mali, did you see what happened in Mali? Did you see the outpour of relief? Did you see the jubilation on the streets of Mali and so on? It must tell us something. And what it tells us is that the independence project has failed in Mali. Indeed, the independence project has failed in all the French-speaking African countries. The independence project has failed throughout Africa. After independence, what has happened? In spite of independence, today, all the French-speaking African countries keep the totality, all of their foreign reserves in the French Central Bank, in the Central Bank of France. And we have come to the stage where they have to borrow their own money from France and pay interest to France on their own money that they have borrowed. The African people are tired of this situation. They want to break out of these chains and so on. That is where we are today. Another objective of the independence movement was that we should own our own resources. Our resources should belong to us. And that our resources should be exploited for our own benefit. Have we been able to achieve that? Look around us. What resources belong to us? What Ghanaian resources belong to the Ghanaian people? What Ghanaian resources are being exploited for the benefit of the Ghanaian people? What African resources belong to the African? What African resources are being exploited for the benefit of the African people? None. And that is why we are here. And that is why we are saddled with unpayable debts. I've said it so many times, and I say it once more. Ghana is the largest producer of gold in the whole of Africa. Largest producer of gold in the whole of Africa. The fifth largest producer of gold in in the whole wide world. Ghana is the second largest producer of cocoa in the whole world. And we can continue with all the others. What has that meant for our people? What has that meant for the development of the national economy? Nothing useful. Nothing useful. Today, we are still discussing the collateralization of the GAD fund. Today, we have a minister who goes into parliament and says, we are imposing a tax. We are going to impose a tax on you, but the purpose of the tax is to use it as a guarantee to go and borrow. That's where we are. Is that what we want? Is that where we wanted to go at independence? Is that where we wanted to go at independence? Today, we should all be reading the reports of Wakam, the research which has been done by Wakam, the research which has been done by the Third World Network about our gold, about our natural resources. And if you read those research reports, you feel like crying. You feel like crying. If you read those research reports, you feel like weeping. Why? A couple of years ago, I read one report and I felt like crying. That was a report who said that we gain more from trade in bush meat that we get from the exploitation of our gold resources. Can you imagine? Trade in bush meat, trade in Okusie, Akrantie, and Adwa gives us more money than the gold industry. That is where we have driven ourselves to 65 years after independence. Trade in Akrantie and Adwa and Okusie and so on gives us much more money than the gold industry. Is this where we wanted to be? You know, I mean, the last 2 weeks have also been extremely sad moments for me as a Ghanaian and as an African. There is an outbreak of war in Europe. There's war in Europe. And the war in Europe is essentially between Russia and NATO. That war is being fought on the soil of Ukraine. But this is a war between NATO and Russia. Look at how African leaders are behaving. Like kindergarten children who cannot even identify their own interests, issuing senseless statements of condemnation, issuing senseless statements which align us to NATO. Say, where did the independence dream go? The vision of Alhaji Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and others, of Jomo Kenyatta, of Nyerere, of Obote and others, was to build a non-aligned Africa, an Africa which stood for the interest of the African people, an Africa which insisted that there should be a world without a bomb, a new world without a bomb. Current African leaders, what are they doing? In the face of racist discrimination against our people, I've seen the videos of Ukrainian security forces preventing Africans from escaping from Russian bombs for the only reason that they are black. Why? all the international laws, the conventions and so on say that all human beings should be assisted in times of war to escape the ravages of war and so on. Not in Ukraine. In Ukraine, if you are cursed to be black, if you are cursed to be African, they force you to stay under the bombs. Only white Caucasians are assisted to escape the bombs. And interestingly, in the face of this, African leaders are declaring support for Ukraine. What madness! What craziness! What madness! They would not even stand up for Africans who are suffering racism as a result of this war. That is where we are 65 years after independence. That is where we are. We are now at the beck. Is it how they say it? At the beck. Let's leave it at the beck first. We are now at the beck of the United States of America and its NATO allies who were responsible for imposing the transatlantic slave trade on us, who are responsible for our underdevelopment. We are now at the back of the US and its allies who fought against us when we said no to apartheid. We are now at the back of the United States and its allies who were the main obstacles in our colonial, in our anti-colonial struggle, and so on. When they say jump, we ask how high. This is where we are today. This is where we are today. And it is a big shame. Sena, the dreams and aspirations of the independence movement have not died yet and would never die. The dreams and aspirations of the independence movement live in our people. They live in the working people. They live in the underprivileged. They live in the progressive forces of Africa and the world. And today's leaders and institutions who have become an impediment in the realization of the dreams and aspirations of the independence movement will soon be shoved aside. Whether they like it or not, the peoples of Africa, the peoples of the world, would mobilize and organize as never before and shove them aside. We cannot continue to be slaves forever. We cannot continue to be discriminated against forever on account of our color. We cannot continue to suffer the indignity of poverty. We cannot continue to suffer the pains of indebtedness. Our people will rise up again, and they will rise up very soon. They will rise up to change our destiny. They will rise up to build that new Africa that Nkrumah dreamt about and worked for. That moment is coming back again. The celebration of Ghana's independence, 65 years of our independence, should allow us to recommit to the ideals of the independence movement. It should allow us to recommit to building institutions which would enable us to have free and fair elections in our country. 65 years of Ghana's independence provides us an opportunity to rethink about how we can engage in the exercise of fundamentally restructuring our economy. Fundamentally restructuring our economy so that we can become masters of our own destiny, so that we can own our resources and exploit those resources for our own benefit. The independence, the 65 years of independence, must rekindle hope in our future. Hope in our future without the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Sena, I hear the politicians talk sometimes. And I hear them taunt each other with the World Bank and the IMF. And I hear them say, why don't you go to the IMF? Oh, they are afraid to go to the IMF. They are afraid to go to the World Bank. And I say, what stupidity is this? I say, what stupidity is this? Because one, throughout our history, the history of mankind, no country, no land has been rescued from decadence, economic decadence, by the IMF and the World Bank. Nobody can point to any country in the world which went through economic distress, which went to the IMF and got salvation. None whatsoever. So why are we always insisting on going back to the World Bank and the IMF where the solution is not there? You look at the IMF and the World Bank and all of those institutions and so on. And Sena, you have economists working there. You have lawyers working there. You have all kinds of professionals working there. And I sit back and I ask myself, those professionals working in those institutions, are they better than the professionals we are producing in Nigeria? Are they better than the professionals we are producing in Ghana? So why? Why are we always rushing to them? If it's lawyers we are looking for, lawyers, just lawyers we are looking for. Look at the array of lawyers we have in this country. And I always mention Professor Akila Kwasoya. I mentioned, you think Professor Akila Kwasoya is inferior to the lawyers who work in the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund? Look at the economists we have produced in Ghana, the Professor Tutus and so on. And we are not using them. In this country, every university has an economics department. If it's knowledge about the economy you are looking for, you can't find it here. You have to employ to go to Washington to take advice on the economy. Those people sitting in Washington giving you advice on the economy, have they seen a cocoa tree before in their lives? Do they know how cocoa is grown? Do they know how many days it takes to dry cocoa for export? What do they know about us? The time has come for us to mobilize our own people and our own resources in the service of our people to find solutions to the problems which confront us. Look, it is this chap, and I don't trust him very much. I'm not like others. This chap from Kenya who talks plenty and so on, whatever his name is, you know. It is him who says that, look, African leaders are always rushing out to go and look for solutions when the solutions are at home. They run away from the solutions to go elsewhere to look for solutions to our problems. The time has come to change that paradigm. The time has come to change completely. And you see, for those who are in love with colonialism, and there are some who are in love with colonialism, and they say it and so on. Those people, they include those who tell us that, look, if we have to develop, we have to copy the example of Germany. If we have to develop, we have to copy the example of the United States. If we have to develop, we have to copy the example of Britain and so on. Massa, the options they use for their development are not available to our people any longer. And so, do you know why I say that? These were the countries which developed on the basis of slave labor. They captured our people to work for them for hundreds of years without pay. That's how they got to where they are today. Slave labor. So those who say that we should copy the United States of America and Britain and so on, please show us which people today, we as Ghanaians, can go and capture our slaves to come and work for us for 100 years without pay. I know many times when I pose this question, the audience responds, Togo. And I say, they don't know what they are saying. Today, we, Ghanaians, we can go to Togo and capture Togolese to come and work for us as slaves for hundreds of years without paying them. They don't know. And I tell them, look, don't go far. Just look at the comparative strength of our Air Force, the comparative strength of the Ghanaian Air Force and the Togolese Air Force. The Togolese Air Force is using Jaguar aircrafts. You are going to confront the Togolese with your MiG what? MiG 20-somethings. It is not possible. That option is close to us. There are no people anywhere in the world that we can go and capture to come and work for us as beasts of burden for 100 years without pay. That option is not available. Those countries developed because of classical colonialism, because they colonized us. They colonized us to steal our resources for their development for years. Today, who can we go and colonize? Show me one country, one place in the world where we can also go and colonize. It is not available to us. Today, the only option available to us as Africans, as Ghanaians, for development is the policy of self-reliance within the context of continental unity under the banner of socialism. That's the only option available to African people and to the Ghanaian people for their development. No other option. Finito. We are alive today. We do hope that none of the leaders of the so-called superpowers will be reckless enough to start a thermonuclear war which will lead to the extinction of the civilization we know today. Today we are alive. Today we still have access to the dreams of those who led the quest for independence. Today, we can assure ourselves that we can continue to work and work hard in order to restore that vision which will liberate us from poverty, that vision which will take us forward into a new era of prosperity. Today, we can make that pledge. Let us make that pledge today. Sena, in 2017, the Akufo-Addo government came into being. 2017. The first speech, inaugural speech of the president, suggested that we're going to review our history. We're going to examine who should take credit for our independence. Alright? Brought in Dede Ashikrisha and all kinds of people, and then managed to slot in Dankwa and Buzia and so on. That was the signal. And indeed, that signal has led us to where we are today. If this government has spent half of the effort it made and continues to make to wipe Nkrumah's name from our history book on the revival of the national economy, perhaps we will not be here. If this government had focused attention on dealing with the national debt, perhaps we will not be here. In fact, if the Dankwa Buzia tradition wants to show that it loves Ghana and can do something, the best way of doing it is not writing silly textbooks for our schools. Completely silly, irrelevant textbook for our schools is to solve the problems that they confront the Ghanaian people today. That is the way of writing their names into the history of Ghana in a positive way. Not this attempt to abolish or lower the celebration of Republic Day. Not this attempt to stop the celebration of African Liberation Day. Not this attempt to remove Founders Day from September to August. It doesn't solve any of the concrete problems that faces our people. The time has come to stop tinkering. The time has come to focus on the real concrete problems of the people of Ghana. And the real concrete problems of the people of Ghana are: one, petroleum prices have doubled over a short period of time. Any increase in petroleum prices has a ripple effect throughout the economy. Kenke prices have tripled. The price of maize has more than quadrupled, and so on. These are the things that the people of Ghana expect that our leaders will tackle. Not removing Nkrumah's name from our history. A word to the wise sometimes can be enough. Sometimes can be enough. Let the words to the wise be enough this time, so that we can all work together to resolve the many problems which confront us. And then finally, we have arrived at a situation 65 years after national independence, where building national consensus should be of the utmost priority. That's where we are today. How do we build national consensus? That is the question before us today. That is the question that history is placing before us today. How do we build national consensus? Because where we are today, that attitude of winner takes it all, that attitude of majority versus minority and so on, is not working. It ain't working. It won't work. So we need to move one step higher. We need to move to a stage of building national consensus. Unfortunately, it appears to me that the caliber of leadership in this country is incapable of building national consensus. And if we are not able to build that national consensus, which would enable us to tackle our national problems in unity, which would enable us to look at the empirical evidence before us and shape our destiny together, my goodness, I don't know what is going to happen to this country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I couldn't help but the Togo issue you raised, I don't know why it was the first place that came to mind myself. But I also forgot a few things about even my links with the country anyway. For a moment there, I forgot my grandfather is there to speak. Anyway, that's very, very interesting. Anyway, let me just go through a few of the messages. But if you're joining us, the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji, you've been talking about our independence. Sometimes I just wish that on days that are closer to independence, we just spend the time discussing independence. But we have another issue we have to discuss very shortly. That is the issue we've been discussing since the beginning of this year, the issue of the economy. And but unfortunately, we don't have so much time to do that. So what I will do is I will start the discussion. I have only about 25 minutes. So it has to be very, very brief submissions. Yeah, 5 minutes. No, okay. So there are two. Okay, so running away from the economy. Okay, Alhaji, allow him. There are two topics left.
Issue, and that has effect on the whole.
There are two topics left. I'm sure you can tie it in. We have issues with the issue in Ukraine. We also have the state of the economy. So Munjib would like to go with Ukraine, but you have 5 minutes to do that. Alhaji also has 5 minutes. 10 minutes. I know it's not so much, but
you can't have 10 minutes.
What 10 minutes for what?
Why are you in a hurry to run away from?
Talk.
You are talking.
No,
the moderator has
not me. I said you, Alhaji.
I think it's 10 minutes. I beg. Because you can't do the economy. You can't do the economy and Ukraine.
We are the lecture hall. Please start.
Yes, so
let him start, because the longer this goes on, the more I lose my time.
No, but he doesn't have 10 minutes.
Yeah,
he can't have 10 minutes.
Why?
Because the time is limited.
I think that because you can't discuss the economy and a very important topic like Ukraine in 10 minutes.
Okay, Alhaji, start.
So I look, maybe they are going to do a very watered down job. I don't like doing watered down jobs.
I know, Alhaji.
Sena, they say when a house has fallen, you don't ask whether the roof is still standing. That this government has so badly mismanaged this economy that today we are in the doldrums. It's an open secret. It's out there, even by their own confession, by their own desperation today, that without e-levy, which in the maximum is calculated to bring down about 6.8 billion, nothing can be done. It's testimony enough that they have run this country's economy into a ditch. So that never in the annals of our country's history have we been so badly denigrated, especially given our economic record, that today we have been downgraded by all the rating agencies, Fitch, Moody's, talk of who, to C, CAA1, junk. So I'm sure you know what junk is. Junk status, that's where our economy is today. Under Nana Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia. These are people who came and math Ghanaians. They are overhyped people who came and told Ghanaians of the competence they had in managing the economy. And I said it, under John Mama, whom they bastardized, the economy at the West was a B. We never even went to B minus, not to talk about C. So now if you take all the indices, revenue, it's not a gap, it's a gulf. Expenditure in disarray. Deficit, huge and still widening. In fact, we have a Fiscal Responsibility Act which enjoins government not to go beyond 5%. In fact, they have added zero even to the 5% that we are talking about. It's gone above the roof. If you take all the major indices, inflation today, even if you add Dr. Bawumia's old calculation of inflation that he sought to do, today he's run away from even doing those things. He's transmogrified into from IT expert, now he's now a bus driver. He's run away. He's run away. Today is when he should have been telling us more about his economic thesis and lectures. Where is he? When you see the chief warrior fleeing from the battlefield, doesn't he tell you that they have massacred his recruits? Where is he? Today, go and see how he, Dr. Bawumia, and Nana Akufo-Addo were talking about the same rating agencies when even Ghana was supposed to come from B plus to B. Glorifying it. Today, they have been sent to junk status. What have we done about it? Sena, this year alone, we are just in the first week of March, alive. Fuel prices have gone up 7 times. Fuel prices, 7 times. You say you are trying to break which 8? The 8 has been broken. Many 8s, in fact, there's not only one now. Many 8s have been broken already. So stop wasting your time. The fuel has broken 8. CD is going to break 8 in a few days' time. The 8s have been broken long time ago. Today, look at the excruciating hardship Ghanaians are facing. Go to the pump. Now almost every other week, fuel prices are going up. And its concomitant effect on standards of living, on cost of living. Prices, you go and buy prices. You go and buy something today. I'll tell you, you go back tomorrow or the day next, the price changes. They're escalating. So even those measures in place, they can't even keep up with the trend of the rises, the average rises in the price of goods and services. So now even the KK I took to Parliament, which suffered Koshoko under Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia, even that KK today, the price is changing again. And the fish is changing. So no wonder Ghanaians are facing excruciating hardship. And what answer? Look at the CD to the dollar. When Kwesi Price was presented, he indicated that we are importing almost everything. So in an import-dependent economy such as what we have now, what else do you expect? Look at the CD dollar today. I was just telling you. You go to the Forex Bureau, 7.5 and growing plus. You are not careful, by the end of this month, we'll hit 8.
Alhaji, you have to learn from me.
Oh.
You already passed 5 minutes.
I beg you. I have not gone to Ukraine.
Oh, no, Alhaji.
So, it is a sad picture for Ghanaians that they have grossly failed. And this is a government that promised Ghanaians heaven on earth. Today they are sinking us down to the throes of hell. And life is unbearable for overwhelming majority of Ghanaians. So I'm certain in my mind that Ghanaians are in a hurry to see the back of this government after December 2024. In fact, if there's one government that will be in a hurry, Ghanaians will forget about and see it as a nightmare, the Nana Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia government. But let me just use 2 minutes for Ukraine. I beg you.
No, you don't have 2 minutes.
Yes, I beg you. I beg you. I beg you. Sena, at least give me the benefit of the doubt. If you look at international relations, it's supposed to be anchored. Yes, there are people who tell you it's anchored on the principle of sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of states and others. All that good talk. And the inviolability of states as far as these principles are concerned, so that an invasion is universally condemned. They say all those things are applicable. And I see war, fundamentally, war is bad for everybody. Not to talk of especially the consequences of the loss of human life. But you see, Sena, when you are looking at the effect, you must go back and look at the cause. Without any shred of doubt, what is happening today is a result of the expansionist move of the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In the aftermath of the collapse of the Soviet Union and others, the space of the independent states that emerged from the Soviet Union and their consequent absorption into NATO and the eastward expansion of NATO has been part of this problem that we are facing. And the truth of the matter, if it is laid bare, is that no entity, especially a superpower, will sit down aloof and allow its security interests to be compromised by the absorption of a hostile neighbor next to its door. You can go back in history and look at even from the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the United States said that, oh, Cuba is just 90 miles across the water. They can't allow any hostile activity to be there that faces and poses a grave threat to the interests of the United States. Sena, so that is where we are. So today, Ukraine and Ukrainians are a victim of the struggle between NATO and Russia, in a situation where collective interests could have sorted out the problem. I am saying that if diplomacy and collective interest principle, where you think that your interest, your security interest is as good as mine, so the collective interest of all of us is to make sure that we are collectively secured, so that the collective principle of mutual interest is taken care of. so that none of us is at a disadvantage. That would have sorted out. But the fact that Ukraine and other countries are drifting, or some already have been absorbed by NATO, and NATO would have been on the threshold of securing Ukraine, poses the problem that we are talking about. I thought President Zelensky should have taken every step to meet President Putin for a discussion or for a dialogue that will guarantee the neutral status of Ukraine.
Okay. Alhaji.
You see, we have neutral countries like Finland, Sweden, and others. No, they have never been subjected to any attack. And I think that if we have that kind of model, like where Ukraine was, so that Ukraine will be insulated from the geopolitical power place of these big powers, and insulated from their influence and control, so that it stays in that neutral posture.
Okay, thank
we
you.
will not have this kind. But I just want to end on this note, that I discern so much stifling hypocrisy from the international community. And Kwesi Pratt made reference to condemnations that some people have made. So now we are here. When Israel, against all logic, against all persuasions from the international community, brazenly violates United Nations Security Council resolutions, and I can mention some of them: Resolution 242, Resolution 338, many, and oppresses and suppresses on the rights of Palestinians. What has happened? What has the international community done to Israel? So now we are here. When Israel forcibly moved and took off territory of Syria called Golan Heights, today, as we speak, Israel has formally indicated that they have annexed Golan Heights. Annexed.
Okay, Alhaji.
That means they have forcibly absorbed it into their system. What has happened?
Minutes, please, Alhaji.
What has happened? Sena, I think that this matter is so I deplore the issue of the loss of life. Many innocent lives will be lost. Very, very, and most unfortunate, who should not be happening.
Okay.
And, so I think that if there's any way in which some peace talks, today they have agreed on a humanitarian corridor for some civilians to live. That's a good start. But I think that they should consolidate it and try and enter into some talks.
Okay.
Where the neutrality of Ukraine at least can be guaranteed.
Okay.
So that Ukraine does not ever form part of NATO or other things.
Yeah, Alhaji, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
My brother.
Mujib.
It's independent.
You get there. You get there.
That is independent.
Thank you.
Alhaji
Mujib.
So then
if they had joined already, this thing would have
Mujib.
by now it would have been a full scale this thing.
Mujib, I was coming to you and you are not helping. You are not helping my time management. I beg you.
No, but
no, please. I was coming to you. So please, Mujib. Alhaji, thank you. Mujib, go ahead.
Yeah, Sena. You have been substituted. So, Sena, thank you. But the argument is, Sena, I think this is the time, Alhaji. Many times we have indicated to you that at least let's look at the state called Ghana and put the part. Alhaji, 6 years down the line, you were in government. How better was the economy at that time? When you Alhaji in 2016 when you lost power, how was the economy?
I just
see, Alhaji will bring the indicators.
That the bowl of cake. How much was it? Those are the things we measure.
But Alhaji, can you look at the public and tell them that when you came into government in 2009, fuel price was like this. In 2011, fuel price has it reduced from where you pick it. You can't say it because it has been increasing, but you are sitting here playing fuel prices. When we saw people who went to Makwala with a chalk and what do you call it, blackboard, to do a mathematical calculations for people of Ghana to see how significant we can reduce fuel prices under President Kufuor, but fuel prices was hanging there. Not long ago they came to power, they couldn't reduce fuel prices in this country. Alhaji, let's stop that hypocritical. The economy was on its knee. That landed Ghana to IMF. And we couldn't get ourselves successful. So we came, it's a cumulative mismanagement. So let's don't try to look as if somebody it is true, and government have admitted. You have been listening to the president's speech. That times are hard, we are in difficult times, but all is not lost. We don't have to be despair. Alhaji, what is so bad? What is it? Government main revenue is taxation. And this is not the first time any government, whether NDC or NPP, is introducing a new tax into the system. How you are getting that? Alhaji, when you came, you introduced taxes. You introduced you are member of parliament. So oh man, the way you can choose to call it.
No.
That
impose taxes, but don't rob.
Alhaji, please.
This is robbery. So as for the economy, I think Alhaji got it wrong. Alhaji, we are finding a way to make sure we put things correct and assuage the suffering and hardships that we are all going through. So now on the issue of
Sena, ask him if you are hungry, do you jump into the pot?
If you are hungry, do you jump into the cooking pot? Don't you wait for the food to cook for them to serve you? So if you think you need taxes, you should tax everything. You tax everything and anything.
We are barbering you. You are scrubbing your head. You relax.
What is this?
Or Ukraine. Me, just like he said, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of it. That is politics and the secret war between the Russians and the NATO group, that's American and the rest. But like Alhaji said, so when we look at the map, but my point is, how have they sat down, Russia sat down, and allowed NATO, all the other countries, NATO has taken, they have joined NATO. Why have they, but my point is that looking at Ukraine next to Russia, can diplomatic, like you said, and Russia is strong. Putin is a very crafty leader. Why can't he secretly convince this young man and then allow him to change his mind, tilting towards NATO? And now look at what is happening. And my worry is, they said the consequences of what is happening on our countries. That is the most worrying, because now I don't want to go there, but that is the reality. As it started, look at the where the fuel price is. It has effect. So if it continue, then you expect that it will be worse. Globally.
Let me expect that you will come with the Ukraine-Russia tax.
Like COVID.
So let's. I think I was now even the allies of Russia are talking to them. China and the others are talking to Putin to cease fire. But I think that Putin. But this thing didn't just start, because he knows what the Ukrainians stand. So I think that he would have been swift trying to persuade this guy in diplomatic way, and not even to abandon the idea. But now, where we are, I don't think war is the solution to the problem. But will this? It won't continue. It will at a point stop. Will that change the position of Ukraine, especially with Zelensky at the helm of affairs? So that is also another area we should be. But my point is, you don't sit down, allow your opponent or your enemy to now have taken control over people surrounding you. Or what were they doing? What were they doing? So it's unfortunate, but I pray that Putin will listen to his friends and just cease fire, because this is not the best. It's not that this time we are just coming out of COVID. It's still there. The world economy is on its knee. Again, we are waging war. I don't think that's the best way. So we plead. I think Putin has a point at a point, but I think that this is not the best time, and I think we don't need war this time. So I think that he has to listen to his friends. He has to listen to his friends and cease fire. But he has to find a way. He has to find a way of also making sure he guard against itself. Because just like Alhaji said, they never allowed that to happen in Cuba. So you don't expect that to happen in Ukraine. But you don't just have to also sit down and think that if you don't do anything, it won't happen.
Thank you, Mujib. Hadi in Pig Farm, they say NATO has made 14,500. Okay, NATO's actions have led to the death of 14,500 in Libya, 165,000 in Afghanistan, 224,000 in Syria, is it 1.2 in Iraq, 1,000 in Palestine. It did not shock anyone. None of these countries called themselves NATO has been sanctioned. Russia starts a war with Ukraine and leaves barely 200 mostly military dead, and all the Western dogs are shocked. Does NATO have moral ground to rebuke Russia? Where was NATO when Israel was bombing and killing innocent people in Palestine? Hypocrites. Deborah.
Well, it's still a very fluid and very complex situation in Ukraine and with Russia. After the coming into force of the Warsaw Pact in 1955 to redemarcate Europe into East and West, there were clear principles within the agreements that said that NATO expansion would not go beyond Germany. But as nations have evolved over time and have become more sovereign and more empowered themselves as individual independent nations, countries have had to make choices on where they really stand. I'll take an example of Hungary, because that's where my mother's side comes from. And now if you look at the Hungarian population is 10 million. The entire Hungarian population is under 10 million. The standing military of the nation of Hungary is under 40,000. Now you have a big country like Russia to the east, and knowing how powerful this nation is, and you have a small country like Hungary, where do you think we're going to align ourselves to? Now, a lot of the countries that came from the Eastern Bloc under the Soviet occupation were communist. Communism could not deliver to the Eastern Bloc countries the promises they made. It ended up in poverty. Businesses could not survive. It was pure government in control of everything, and corruption was rife. Crime was high. So a lot of these nations took decisions that we could not align to communism. And that is actually what Ukraine is fighting vehemently to oppose, why they don't want to align to Russia. And they prefer to be aligned to the Western Bloc democracies. So for a nation like Hungary, it was without a doubt that we are going to go EU and we're going to join NATO. Because with NATO, we have a better protection mechanism in terms of the bigger military might of the NATO compared to Russia. Unfortunately, this situation has happened. And Putin, as right as his principles are, unfortunately, I think that the choice that he made was a bit too high-handed. And at the moment, you have a nation of 40 million people under siege. And I expect that the United Nations, and there was a time in this world we live in, just a few recent past, where they came up with this group of people they call the Council of Elders. I don't know what happened to them in this crisis. They've gone mute. And before the show started, I was telling you that, in fact, if you know how the history of these Eastern Europeans into Russia, most of them are descendants of warlords. And it's very difficult to go into a battle with them and call for a truce in weeks. This battle will be prolonged. It is better at the time when they are mostly Catholics, at the time when they are in a period of Lent, you send the Pope to go and broker peace. Today, Russia has agreed to a ceasefire to allow passage of students, international students mostly, and civilians. So he didn't give grants a ceasefire because he's ending the war. It is just for passage of international students and other members of other nationals who have been caught up in the war. And they've outlined the exact routes they are supposed to take. Deviation, you find yourself in a different situation. Now, unfortunately for Ghana, we also have citizens locked up there, especially students, over 4,000 of them. I would have enough time, so I have to summarize and bring it to an end. Hungary has offered that Ghanaian students who want to continue with their education, they've made provision for them to apply to Hungarian universities per their current level, wherever they are, whether you're in third year, final year. they'll take them on so they can complete their education and then be sent back to Ghana. Over the last couple of years, Ghana and Hungary have had a very good relationship in various areas, in agriculture and education, all kinds of stuff. So this is an opportunity that Hungary is offering to Ghanaian students who want to stay in Hungary to complete their education and come up. But the telltale signs of the problems we are encountering, unfortunately, has even come to worsen the economic situation that we found ourselves in as a country. At first, the resilient economy that they were boasting about, for whatever reason, a simple virus as COVID just slashed the legs of our resilient economy and brought us down on our knees. Our face was to the ground. We were just this close to falling flat on the ground. And then a small battle in Ukraine and Russia, which is so far away from us, because of the poor mismanagement of our government and our vice president, who refused to chair his economic management team, and would rather be more interested in going to digitize Accra Sports Stadium, so supporters can go and watch football by buying tickets in advance in their houses, has forgotten all about the economic management of this country and has left us to our feet. I mean, look at the poor state we find ourselves in. As for the future of this country, I can't really tell. The rest, like typical of all Ghanaians, we'll leave it to God. But the one that's in the midst, and what we can do as human beings and as men, we can complain to the high rules, and that's why I'll never stop doing it, because Akufo-Addo and Bawumia have been a total disaster. That's where I end it.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I go to comment price, just a message from Dr. Percy, which said Kwesi Pratt is absolutely right when he says that the tussle in Ukraine is a proxy war between Russia and the United States plus its vassals in NATO plus EU plus G7 plus AUKUS, etc. Ukraine is a mere pawn. Since the 2014 maiden coup engineered by the US, the puppet regime they installed have deceived themselves and a part of the Ukrainian people into believing that their country can be used to antagonize Russia to the point of war by joining NATO, an instrument of US policy for the encirclement, subversion, breakup, and partitioning of the then Soviet Union and now Russia, and the US plus its vassals in NATO will be in the coming fight with them, bleeding and dying together. As for Ghana's vote on the unbalanced resolution at the UNGA to condemn Russia, nothing less was acceptable from puppet regimes plus vassals plus new colonies of the US empire. That's a fact.
Unfortunately, we don't appear to have enough time, but just a few straight facts. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics did something that no nation in the world has been able to achieve. Its transformation from a peasant agrarian economy to a super industrial power took place in a period of 70 years. No nation in the world was able to achieve that. At the time of the so-called collapse of the Soviet Union, the indices were clear. When it came to access to social services like education, like health, and so on, the United States and its allies were trailing the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The factors which led to the so-called collapse can be discussed much later. You understand? But the Soviet Union was not a poor country. It was a prosperous country. It had been transformed from a purely agrarian peasant economy to a super industrialized society in a period of 70 years. Now, Ukraine. You know, the Western countries were telling Zelensky and his people to fight. Stand and fight. We'll support you. You remember? When the Russian tanks started rolling into Ukraine, what did they do? They called Zelensky on telephone and told him to run away. Is that not what happened? Say, hey, master, they are coming, better run. That is the nature of their support. They say you should run away. And that if he needed assistance to run away, they will come and assist him to run away. That's the nature of their support. 2 days ago, the United States of America had a conversation with Zelensky. Said he should go and negotiate. Zelensky is asking for air power. He's asking for the imposition of no-fly zone and so on. They looked him in the face and said, you are dreaming. You will never get it. Your best option is to go and negotiate. And that if you go and Putin's people insist on your neutrality, accept it. That's what the US is telling Ukraine now. I mean, what can be more foolish like this? You push your country into a needless war. About 400 people are dead, and so on. Now you are going to negotiate to accept the very conditions you could have accepted much, much earlier to stop this war. That is where we are. But you see, the hypocrisy of the world is beyond belief. Today, Ukrainians who have picked up weapons to fight what they claim to be Russian invasion and so on, they are all important heroes. Hey! Heroes, nationalists, this and that and that. The Palestinians who do the same thing in the face of Israeli occupation and aggression, senseless murder of the Palestinian people, they also them, they are terrorists. These are double standards. The United States is talking about the sovereignty of states. Where was the sovereignty of states when they marched all the way to Iraq and facilitated the killing of Saddam Hussein? 1.2 million people were killed in Iraq, not 400. 1.2 million people were killed in Iraq. They went to Libya. They oversaw the killing of Gaddafi. They dragged his body on the streets and put his body in a deep freezer in a supermarket. That is okay. What didn't they do in Afghanistan? Today they are talking about International Criminal Court investigating atrocities committed in this war. When the same International Criminal Court decided to investigate U.S. involvement in Afghanistan, what did they do? They threatened, they actually imposed sanctions on the Gambian lady who was the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. He said none of their soldiers will go to the International Criminal Court. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. Exactly. But you had your chance, I didn't say it.
Her visa, I can't say everything, Kwesi. Her visa was denied. Just to emphasize. But you know that the US is not a signatory to the ICC. They don't.
What hypocrisy? And then they go to the UN General Assembly and pass a resolution and say, hey, Russia has no moral authority. The whole world is against Russia and so on. How many times hasn't the UN General Assembly passed resolutions calling on the United States of America to lift its illegal blockade against Cuba? Sometimes only 3 countries vote with the United States of America. They still insist on doing what they have to do. Do you know the consequences of the blockade on Cuba? The number of people who have died as a result of their denial to medicine and so on? Do you know what pain the Cuban people are suffering as a result of the imposition of that blockade? This hypocrisy must stop. One time, this hypocrisy must stop. Look at the people of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and what they have to go through as a result of Moroccan occupation. Who is complaining about Moroccan occupation of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic? The Chagos Islands. They have seized the islands from the indigenous people, driven them out into exile, and turned the islands into military bases. Who is complaining about the Chagos Island? Who is complaining about West Papua and so on? The hypocrisy in international relations must come to an end one day. Double standards. Dirty double standards.
Thank you. And that's why I was trying to profess some advice to President Volodymyr Zelensky. You see, if somebody says he loves you and wants you to demonstrate your bravery, and he asks you to go and catch a ferocious, hungry lion with your bare hands, it's not bravery, it's foolhardiness. He doesn't love you. And that is why I said that.
And then when the lion passes on you, say, run away.
Exactly. You see, so that is why I said that, look, if there's a way to negotiate and guarantee the neutral status of Ukraine, a way so that we stop this devastating war. Because look, take it or leave it, Ukraine they don't have 1% chance of standing the Russians, no matter what it happens. They are overwhelming superiority in the military field. They can't. So far, it's because Russia has restrained itself and not use the most powerful weapons that you should use. I am telling you that in a week this thing could have been settled. But I'm just indicating to you that we should not get there. And that is why I think that, look, the lives that are lost, frankly speaking, one life lost is one life too many.
Okay. Thank you.
It's innocent lives. And I think that we should negotiate a way, get Ukraine to get a NATO and stop this war.
Thank you.
It's better.
You hear
the West is pushing Ukraine into a needless...
about Russia targeting civilians. I'm sure you've heard it.
No.
And so on. The same people who are saying that the Russians are targeting civilians and so on, they come and tell us that, look, the Ukrainians are very brave people, courageous. And that's women without weapons, with their bare hands, are pushing back Russian tanks. Does that make sense to you? The people who are being targeted with lethal weapons and so on, they are being blown off the face of the earth. The same people are using their bare hands to drive tanks away. The two statements don't make sense if you put the two statements together and we think that all of them can be valid. We're a fool.
Sena, because I said that to think, for instance, if you come and you are throwing Molotov cocktails at a soldier who has a tank, what do you think will happen? So that is what I said to think. Those things, there will be needless butcher of people. It shouldn't happen. We should not allow the world to drift into that. And that's why I say that the Ukrainians themselves must reason for themselves and not be allowed to be pushed, goaded into taking certain positions, which in the end doesn't help them in their national interest. It doesn't help them in the look at the destruction that is going on. Don't destroy the world.
Thank you.
No, it's not. It's human life. We are talking about human life. We are destroying human life.
Okay, so
it should not be allowed to continue.
There's someone is sharing some information.
No, it's avoidable.
There's a friend based in Germany who says for students and researchers fleeing from Ukraine, it says Bielefeld University would like to offer a place of refuge. We invite students to continue their studies and academics to continue their research here in Bielefeld. In making this offer, we draw upon many years of experience in supporting refugees and helping them lay the foundation for life. That is in Germany. So there are people who are looking for all kinds of places where they can go to. Some Ghanaian students have decided that let's go back home and start over again. Others want to stay there. So there are opportunities you can take advantage of. But a big thank you to you. But before I go, let me just also announce that the Obasima train is heading to the University of Education campus in Winneba, the North Campus, JAM Conference Center, North Campus, University Education, Winneba. It will be there on 11th of March, that is Friday. On Friday, the Obasima train is going around campuses around Ghana, and they will be on the University of Education, Winneba campus, and JAM Conference Center, North Campus. The theme is Progressive Portrayal, Building Capacity for Elevation. And the speakers will be the same people who spoke on the University of Ghana campus. Honorable Tangoba Abayage, Baba Kofi, Sylvia Usu Ankoma, Petra Abba Samwa, Amasewa Nekwe Tete, and Joyce Bauer Muktari. So they will be addressing the Obahima Summit in the University of Education, Winneba. So do take note if you're on that campus. 11th of March, 2022. Well, a big thank you to you for sticking and staying with us. But thanks to Ruben, I know tomorrow is the birthday of Madam Lodina Mahama. That she will celebrate her birthday. Former First Lady will celebrate her birthday yesterday. And it turns out your former boss, Kobna J. Japan, Master. Okay, we'll also be celebrating his birthday tomorrow. There's also Michael Kofi Buampong, who also celebrates his birthday too. Isifu Mohammed Pangabo will celebrate his birthday. And then a happy birthday to Maigida Damali. A big thank you to you for making time to join us today on Pan-African Television. Alhaji and Alhaji is a show, the mother of all talk shows. My name is Sena Nombo. A big thank you to the panel today. Always wonderful to see Mujib and Alhaji together. Always a pleasure having Mr. Kwesi Jr. And then a big thank you to Gabriela Tete, who have joined us on the panel today. It's wonderful to have them. We are done. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fruitful week. Meet us back here same time next week. In the meantime, tomorrow is the 26th birthday of Radio Gold, and it will be the 65th anniversary, independent anniversary of this country. We are done.
He has labored, he has suffered